Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are back. All right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. We are back. We are back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get the show started. Let's get it started in here. Yes, y'all. We are back. All right. As you all know, Christmas is close. Okay. Christmas is close. Close by. All right. So, what are you doing for Christmas? What are you doing for Christmas? And are you ready to have a good time with your family? Relax, chill. You know the vibes. All right. Looks like President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden, they visited the Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C. And of course, they had a little, you know, gift session with the kids, which I think is very thoughtful of the president and his wife. Um, yeah, man. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am back like I never left. Told you I was gonna be back here in the, I guess, morning time or noon, but ooh, I was working. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I I'm gonna play this for you guys. All right, here we go.
All right. Let him know he can do Okay, so do most of you know this story, The Night Before Christmas? Yes?
Yes.
Some people say no. Okay, well this is the first time that you'll hear it, I guess. All right. This is a classic. It was the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eye should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop, the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I grew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed in all fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his sack. Yes, I was like, like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow.
Yeah,
He had
this is
a
too
round
funny.
face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. Reading and entertainment.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Well, you've heard the First Lady read the Christmas story to the kids at the Washington, D.C. Children's National Hospital. Yes, I just wanted to start the show with a little Christmas vibes. But with that being said, the House has finally passed the bill to avert shutdown, ladies and gentlemen. Let's check that out.
The U.S. House of Representatives appears to be on the verge of approving a bill to avert a federal government shutdown. The pared-down plan winning support from both Democrats and Republicans after Donald Trump set off a scramble here in Washington when he tanked a
set up a scramble.
previously negotiated bipartisan deal. Let's get right to our chief congressional correspondent, Manu Raju, who is up on Capitol Hill. Manu, update our viewers on the very latest.
Yeah, this is on the verge of passing, Wolf, averting a scare at the last minute. A government shutdown just on the horizon in a matter of hours. But now the House is poised to pass this bill well over the threshold, the two-thirds majority needed to pass this bill that would keep the government open up until mid-March. Right now is a 366 to 34 vote. That's well over the 290 votes that would be needed, assuming all members are here and present. So that, and right now it looks like it's broken down. A lot of Republicans in favor of it. Well, 170 Republicans voting in the affirmative, just 34 voting against it. And the Democrats, more Democrats have supported this. In fact, 196 Democrats. There's not a single Democratic no vote. Now, this came all after a scare over the last several days, and then the aftermath of Donald Trump intervening late and scuttling a separate bipartisan deal that had been reached. It appeared to be on a glide path to becoming law. Trump demanding major changes, including to include an increase of the national debt limit, something he wanted off the table so we would have to deal with it in the next Congress. That is a perennially difficult issue for Congress to deal with. He didn't want to have to handle it. He said deal with it now. But Congress had a very difficult time in responding to that demand. In fact, one of a proposal backed by him yesterday failed. That went down with the support opposition of 38 Republicans and Democrats because of that demand of Donald Trump's to include a national debt limit increase. So today, all day long, they've been negotiating behind closed doors, trying to figure out how to placate Donald Trump's concerns and win over Democrats as well. And it looks like, Wolf, that the gavel just came down and that this bill has, in fact, passed the House of Representatives. It will go over now to the Senate, and that's where they'll act on this later tonight, Wolf. And so at the moment, this bill, which includes an extension of government funding up until mid-March, also aid to farmers, about $10 billion for farmers hit hard by difficult conditions around the country, and $100 billion or so for communities ravaged by natural disasters, all part of this bill. But that issue of the national debt limit was taken out of this bill and sent to deal with in the next Congress, putting that on Donald Trump's plate and really defying Donald Trump's public demands over that issue over the last several days. But see, Trump simply did not have the votes. The final vote, Wolf, was 366 to 34, passing this bill out of the House of Representatives just moments ago. 34 Republicans voted against it, and one Democrat voted present. The rest of the Democrats voted for it. So an overwhelming vote in the House of Representatives just hours before the shutdown deadline, and now on to the Senate, which will expect it to give overwhelming passage later tonight, Wolf.
So once the Senate passes it, this legislation later tonight, it'll then go to the White House, and then President Biden has to sign it into law. So it looks like it's a done deal that there won't be a federal government shutdown.
It very much does so, Wolf. And despite the scares here, and the question is going to be here about how Donald Trump was placated. Was he placated by the decision by the Speaker of the House, essentially, to pull out that demand of Donald Trump's to increase the national debt limit? That was a red line for Democrats. They did not want to give in on that because they see that as leverage they can use in the next Congress to fight the Trump agenda. And Donald Trump wanted it off the table. He said he, in fact, threatened to go after Republicans who opposed him on that issue and threatened them with primary challenges in their next elections. But some Republicans simply ignored that request, showing the limits of Donald Trump's power here on Capitol Hill. The question is going to be, how is Donald Trump? Is he okay with the Speaker taking that step? And what will the Speaker, what is his own path to power, to stay in power in the House? January 3rd, a key date to watch in just a couple of weeks. That's when the Speaker's race will occur on the floor of the House. A lot of Republicans were unhappy, particularly those on the far right of this House Republican Conference, unhappy with his handling of all of this. Several of them who I've talked to on the way up to votes would not commit to voting for him on January 3rd, Wolf, and he can only lose a couple of votes on the House floor to be reelected Speaker. So we'll see if Donald Trump says anything about this bill, says anything about the Speaker's handling of this, or backs him for reelection for Speaker as he has done in the past. That's going to be a huge question as Republicans now grapple with the incoming president, and Trump grapples with the fact that some Republicans defied what he had demanded over the last couple of days.
Very interesting indeed. Manu Raju, a very busy guy up on Capitol Hill. Thank you very, very much. I want to get some analysis from our political experts who are here with me in the Situation Room. And Jeff Zeleny, a whirlwind 48 hours up and down. Now it's up. It looks like it's going to pass. There will not be a federal government shutdown. Give us your sense of how significant this is.
Well, look, I mean, this was yet one more example. We've lost track of how many recent examples there have been of spending bills. They come just to the brink of our government shutdown. But one thing that people know since the government shutdown of the first Trump administration, they are not good politics, particularly right before Christmas. This was something that obviously both sides viewed was not a good thing. But we learned a lot from the last 48 hours or so that will be instructive heading into the next year. One, Speaker Johnson, how weakened is he by all of this? We don't know quite yet. He's obviously hoping that some holiday charity perhaps steps in here and people forget some of this come January 3rd, but we'll see about that. But we also learned that Elon Musk is clearly much more influential than we even assumed. So look, as the Senate passes this evening, presumably, obviously they want to get out of town as well. We know that in the Trump era, it is going to be a challenge to govern. And the debt ceiling, we know why the president-elect wanted to get it out of the way now, but it is not. This is going to be a huge cloud and a challenge that's going to be awaiting him next year.
Once he's sworn in as president on January 20th, Kristen Holmes is with us. Kristen, earlier today, Trump posted this, and let me read what he posted. If there is going to be a shutdown of government, let it begin now under the Biden administration, not after January 20th under Trump. This is a Biden problem to solve, but if Republicans can help solve it, they will. What are you hearing right now of the reaction from inside the Trump camp?
Well, of course, Donald Trump and his allies want to pin this on the Biden administration, despite the fact that even Republicans have said publicly, some of them, that it was Donald Trump himself and Elon Musk who tanked this bill. They were expecting it to pass, and then he tweeted out that anyone who voted for it should be primaried. So the idea that this would fall on Biden, particularly when we haven't really seen Biden in the spotlight at all on this, it seems pretty far-fetched. But of course,
we haven't even seen Biden at all. Okay? It's not even close to the spotlight. He's falling upstairs. He's sleeping on war stage. He was sleeping in Angola. So it's like, look, Trump is already acting like the commander-in-chief. Everybody's going to Mar-a-Lago to meet up with this guy. It's like, who is the actual 46th president of the United States? Is it Jill Biden? Is it Kamala Harris? Is it Nancy Pelosi? Is it Chuck Schumer? Or is it Donald Trump? I mean, who knows?
course, this is Donald Trump trying to posture, trying to say that it's not going to fall on him. The one thing I do want to point out here, I think it's interesting, is I want to go back to what Jeff was saying about Speaker Johnson, because I really think this is going to be one of the most interesting dynamics here, particularly when it comes to Johnson, Trump, and Elon Musk. A few moments ago, Elon Musk seemingly was posting support of Johnson, saying the speaker did a good job with what he had. We know that usually what Elon has said in the past has come from Donald Trump, but then I got a text from a senior advisor essentially saying that this was Johnson's fault, not Donald Trump's fault, that Trump had mentioned that he wanted to deal with the debt ceiling early on, and that this was, something that Johnson knew before putting forward this negotiated bill. The reason why that's interesting is that clearly they're throwing Johnson under the bus. So how this dynamic actually ends up playing out and where Trump's head is at, that'll be interesting to see as we go into the speaker's race.
A lot of questions still remain. Lauren Tomlinson, let's talk a little bit about the impact this is going to have on your party, the Republican Party. You're a Republican strategist. What is the state of chaos in the Republican Party right now?
I think what you're seeing is, it's an unhappy coalition right now, and it has been for a while with the Republican Party. You have the new members coming in, more of the Trumpians and the establishment. And I think we're going to see this type of push and pull, especially as these new members come in the next Congress. I also think it's interesting because Johnson, I kind of agree with you on Johnson's going to get the blame for this. He hasn't been able to lead his people throughout this. We've had lots of little scares like this throughout the past year. And I think this says a lot about what he should have done, which is he should have taken this head on, not just with the debt ceiling and negotiating with Trump early, but also passing the 12 appropriation bills in order. He had time to do this throughout the year. We could have had a lot of these debates before now. So I think that what you're going to see is it was a wish list for them to clear the decks for Trump to come in and have an aggressive agenda, but the honeymoon period is over. So Trump is now going to have to move from his campaign promises to what he's actually able to accomplish with a government that, at least in January, he'll have full control of.
What does it say to you, Ashley, at the end, that more Democrats voted for this legislation tonight than Republicans?
I mean, it says that Jeffries has the strongest hand in any negotiating. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat.
And that's another thing. Like, why would the Republicans who are supposed to be supporting the legendary, the OG, the 45th, now the 47th, why are they not voting in droves? The fact that last night the bill didn't pass, why would the bill not pass? And why would people not be present to vote? The Republicans are not sticking together. And this is what the Democrats are trying to do. Divide and conquer. They're trying to divide and conquer. They're trying to divide the Republican Party. It's just common sense. Now they're saying President Musk. The more they say these things, the more Trump, Trump is a smart person. However, ego comes into play once in a while. So if he gets into his ego and say, you know what do you mean President Musk? Then we're going to have an issue because Trump actually needs Musk. Because Musk is a smart person, brave, not just because he's the richest man alive or ever. He actually has some common sense, okay? So, and he used to be a Democrat, so he actually wants something different. And the fact that he's part of the Department of Government Efficiency, this is something that, they just have to be smart. They just have to be smart. If they're not smart, they're going to F it up. They're going to F all of this right here up. Because now they're going to have the White House, they're going to have the Congress, they're going to have Senate. So it's like, they better do what they got to do.
Democratic leader has the strongest hand in any negotiation and will as we move into the next term. The Republicans are going to have the smallest majority, second smallest majority in American history after January. So it's a new day for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. They're going to have to adjust themselves. But here's two really big takeaways for me, Wolf. One, this is Donald Trump's first loss. That cannot be overstated. His party bucked him, and the reality is they need Democratic votes. The second is, I feel for Jeffries. I used to work for Speaker Pelosi, and what you need when you're governing is a level of certainty, especially from the White House. So the question is, who's in charge? Who's in control? Is it Elon Musk? Is it Donald Trump? I mean, the outstanding question there leaves, I think, Johnson in this perilous position going forward, and that's really going to really put on full display the fact that Republicans have a sort of a lack of an ability to govern.
Well, there you have it. On to the next.
This piece does show Biden having all of these sort of walls up.
Yeah.
And the walls kept getting higher and higher as the years went on.
This is the biggest scandal in America. And the level and volume of people who dedicated themselves to lying to everyone at home about this man's condition for 4 straight years up through this summer is breathtaking. It's a scandal of epic proportions. And it's a fair question to ask, who is running the country? Who has been running the country? And as I said earlier, if you're worried about Donald Trump's advisors having influence, for the last 4 years, apparently this president, duly elected, but this president was not capable of fulfilling the duties of the office. And his staff and the White House lied about it and kept it from the American people. It's an absolute scandal.
Look, I'll say 2 things. One is that I think Joe Biden, despite all this, had a very successful tenure. You may disagree, but I think on policy as a Democrat, he had a very successful.
What is she talking about? She had a very successful tenure. Nope. Nope. Don't let me start getting a bad vibe for my chicken and potato. I'm enjoying my chicken and potatoes. Don't be saying trash.
4 years. But there's a bigger problem here. And that is that I think Democrats are at the point where Republicans might have been right after the Bush election or after the Bush term was up, which is that I think Democrats are starting to mistrust their institutions. And this goes back to a bipartisan effort to lie us into the Iraq War, not just by George Bush, but also by a lot of Democrats. It has to do with the fact that Barack Obama did not hold anybody accountable after the 2008 crisis, which also happened in George Bush's watch, but he became president. He never threw a hostage on the tarmac from Wall Street. You saw the rise of Bernie Sanders as a result of that, and you saw a lot of institutional Democrats, me included, saying, no, 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 this is not the time. We have to stick with the institution. And I think you have a lot of Democrats now, me included, who are pretty sick of the institution and trusting people in the institution. And this is just one example, most recent example, I think, of people institutionally lying to the American people. And what you're ultimately going to see, and I don't have a problem saying this as a Democrat, is that you're going to see a Tea Party version rise up in the Democratic Party based on the fact that this is yet another marker of people just not trusting our leaders anymore. And I'm sorry to say that, but I think we brought this on ourselves.
Yeah, I remember so distinctly when the Wall Street Journal's first story came out and the uproar about it among Democrats and the anger that they were making things up. In this story, they have multiple sitting members of Congress on the record talking about how they hardly ever heard from the president. They're chairmen of their respective committees, going all the way back to the Afghanistan withdrawal. I mean, this is something that they told the public was a Joe Biden decision. And according to this article, he...
You know you effed up. You know you effed up when CNN is not even supporting you. When CNN don't support you, you know you done effed up. You definitely effed up. Because these guys 1,000% support Joe Biden. This is a Joe Biden campaign applaud. We love you. Gift card tire place. But they're not even supporting him right now. Now they're saying signs of Biden declines arose month into term. So what? Like 6 months into his presidency? 8 months into his presidency? What is going on? Everybody now realizes that they voted wrongly in 2020. But I'm so happy. I am absolutely happy because one thing is for sure. We have the 47th, who happens to be the legendary, the Don, the 45th, Donald J. Trump. And now he's back. He's back. Common sense will be back. The Ukraine and Russia BS is going to be over. Okay? It's over. You ain't sending no more money. No more money now. No more money to Ukraine. Okay? You're going to have to decide. Relax. We got the border to fix. We have inflation to reduce. Okay? We don't have time to be catering for other nations and figuring out how they're gonna maintain their democracy. Nah, it ain't gonna happen.
Was not really a huge part of rationalizing it, even to his own party among the elected officials.
But I think there is, like, I don't know if everybody's looking at me like I'm supposed to be defending the Democrats right now.
No.
Because, like, I think the interesting thing about this entire question is, like, when even the Democratic institutionalists realized, like, this dude can't be president, they said he can't be president, and then didn't blindly defend him. You know, he would have been running for a second term except for the Democratic Party. And now and there were people who always thought that this man could not be president now, right? But that is not up to, well, that could be up to the cabinet, right? And we were lied to, but I don't know how to defend that because I didn't think he should be president for a second term. I think that the party, when people realized that he could not do the job of president, they did something about it.
There were a lot of people, even at that time, still defending his ability to run for
Including you. Yeah, including you. Yeah. Including you. Yeah, you are one of those people that said, you know what? I think maybe one bad night isn't that bad. Like, people were literally saying, one bad night. You know, you just had one bad night. One bad night he debated. It's just one bad night, guys. Come out. Like, what? Like, I would talk to Democrats and they'll be like, it's just one bad night, Genesis. You can now use one bad night to judge a whole presidential term. And I'm like, this guy couldn't even talk on stage. He was gone. And then 2-3 weeks later, he drops out. And then Kamala Harris takes the stage from fry pan to fire.
president again. Some people even suggested that it didn't matter whether or not he could continue as president, that he should continue to run.
Even after that disastrous debate on this network, there were some people being like, oh, he had a bad night. He had a bad night. You know, and one of the...
Yes, on this network called CNN. Yes, you said he had I just told you guys, right? I just told you these folks were saying he had a bad night. Here we go. Yeah, unleash on them, pretty lady.
The quotes in that Wall Street Journal piece was, you know, there are good days and bad days. Today's a bad day. We'll deal with this tomorrow. The problem is tomorrow never came. It was just one bad day after another. And this kind of shielding President Biden, lying to the American people, telling them, don't believe your lying eyes, is yet another reason why President Trump was so successful. Because people just don't trust what they're being told. When they see clearly there was a decline in President Biden, and you're told, don't believe your own lying eyes, nothing to see here, people go, all right, what else are they lying to us about?
He also, in this lame duck period, has... I mean, look, we talk about all the time how Democrats ran on Trump being a threat to democracy, but just listen to what has changed between January of 2024 and just yesterday.
Trump's assault on democracy isn't just part of his past. It's what he's promising for the future. He's being straightforward. He's not hiding the ball. The fact that he doesn't abide by the rules of the democracy we've established is not my concern. My job is to make a transition workable and available.
That's hard to watch. And I've got nothing for you. I got no excuses for certainly. I think all of America sees what's going on here. I will say I was at the White House this week for a Christmas party, and Joe Biden talked for about 10 minutes. He cracked some jokes, and he was pretty lucid, and it was a good. But it certainly was not prepared, in my opinion, to run the country. I do think we need to go back to the conversation that was happening on the campaign trail, and that's about age limits. I think we've got to start figuring out what that looks like. Boardrooms that have billions and billions and billions of dollars of investor money does that. And I know we talk about voters need to have the right, you know, the opportunity to cast those votes, but I do think age limits in that position, it is the most demanding job anybody's ever held in their entire life.
I'm not for age limits because I do think voters, that's something you can easily discern. And people were discerning that when they were turning against Joe Biden. I just have to ask when the accountability is going to come for every single person who sat in front of a television, who held some position of responsibility and lied their rear end off about what they were seeing behind closed doors. People came on television and said, oh, I'm with him all day and he's really engaged and he's doing the job and he's running circles around us and these videos are.
Kamala Harris, your beloved vice president, first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, said he's as sharp as nails. He runs circles around me. That's what Kamala Harris said. What is going on? Why are you lying?
They're cheap fakes and on and on and on, brazen lying by people who work for our government, and they lied to us about it.
What do you have in mind in terms of accountability?
I don't know, but if I were in Congress or I were the incoming administration, I would be thinking about, because I agree with you on institutional trust. I think there is a lack of trust across the board. It's happening in your party. It's been happening in my party. How do you ever regain trust if there's no accountability for the people who lied us into the deficit in the first place? That's my question.
And if I'm a Democrat, I would never hire anyone who helped perpetrate this to be in a future administration. How can you regain trust of the American people if you're putting the exact same people back who lied to them?
I think you're opening up a Pandora's box if you want to start investigating people who lie on behalf of their president, because one day there's going to be a Democrat in office after Donald Trump leaves, and I promise you, you don't want that to be happening to your party. But I will also say, to your point,
I don't agree with that.
You don't? You think Donald Trump's been
nobody cares.
Here's what I think. If you go to work for the government and you stand up at the podium like Kareem has done and knowingly and fully lie to the American people because you know full well what you see behind the scenes and what you're saying in front of the podium, I mean, maybe the accountability is they never get hired again.
Like it was the largest inauguration crowd in the
Is that
history?
as consequential as this?
But it's a lie. But it's a lie.
I think it's a systemic problem, right? Because I agree with your comments around somebody hiding the fact that Joe Biden was unable to do his job and casting all these fake narratives. But I'll also say those same stories came out of the Trump's White House also. Like
the Reagan administration.
There's no Wall Street Journal expose.
There was a 2020 election. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Do you remember
if there were, you call it fake news. That's
but I haven't heard him say that. Thank you for saying that. But I haven't heard him say that.
I don't want to. I think this is a Joe Biden conversation, but I mean, I think the point Jeff is making, we know for a fact Donald Trump spent a lot of time in that space between the Oval Office watching television when January 6th was occurring.
Okay, but no one is
So
saying they have to shut down the White House because he's not with it today. This man is awake 23 hours a day. He's clearly engaged. And the American people just elected him over somebody who was much younger, I will point out to you. My question is this. We elect people for a reason. The elected leadership of the government is supposed to be making decisions. For 4 years, the unelected have been in charge of our country during critical moments. We don't live in a country where the unelected are supposed to rule us. We live where the elected are supposed to rule. My problem is for 4 years we were lied to about who's actually running the country. This is a problem.
What?
Is for 4 years we were lied to about who's actually running because he's not with it today. This man is awake 23 hours a day. He's clearly engaged. And the American people just elected him over somebody who was much younger, I will point out to you. My question is this. We elect people for a reason. The elected leadership of the government is supposed to be making decisions. For 4 years, the unelected have been in charge of our country during critical moments. We don't live in a country where the unelected are supposed to rule us. We live where the elected are supposed to rule. My problem is for 4 years we were lied to about who's actually running the country. This is a problem.
Absolutely. It's always been a problem. And the problem is the people, the voters who kept saying that Joe Biden was 100%. Everybody knew he wasn't 100%. Everybody knew. But Democrats are just so, I don't know, out of it. What are you doing? And to top it all off, they gave us Kamala Harris. Like, you went from frying pan to fire. And that's why Trump won all swing state, popular vote, electoral college. And there Biden goes, holding his in his hands. Been lying for 4 years.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle. Thank you, as always, for spending time with us. Liars lose, truth tellers win. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
There we go.
Only in Washington does the guy who triggered massive inflation and thus huge pain for hardworking Americans congratulate himself for a job well done.
And the fundamental change I made was in the economy. What I decided to do was to change it to build the economy from the middle out and the bottom up. Wealthy still do very well, but the middle class and working class people do much, much better.
Really? Really? That must be why Trump destroyed Kamala on the issue of the economy and why, going into the election, a majority of Americans said they were worse off than they were 4 years ago. Nice going, Joe. Oh, and it's also why household debt has reached record levels, $17.9 trillion, and why loan delinquencies are also way up. It's because it's all great under Joe. But come on, don't fret. Biden says, because if you don't see the benefits of his policies yet, you're going to see them soon.
The one thing that I should have spent more time talking about is these things are going to take time to be put in place to connect between what's happening to the economy as a whole and what's going to happen to the middle class Americans. As a consequence of what we've done, it's going to take a little bit of time.
Just wait. Help is on the way. Haven't we heard that before? Well, the man forgets the names of his own cabinet members, but I'm telling you, he never forgets how to lie about his record. You know what I like to say? Once a flim-flam artist, always a flim-flam artist.
Facts.
Any other regrets that you have? Anything you wish you would have done differently?
I guess if I thought a lot about it, it'd be something I've done specifically done, but not generically. I set out to do two things. Restore America's leadership in the world. I think we've done that. And two, to generate opportunity for ordinary people to have a shot in the economy. And I think we've done that as well.
Sure, that's all true, if you believe Hunter Biden was really snorting powdered sugar in all those old videos. Poor and middle-class Americans are still being hard hit. They're actually hardest hit by the Biden-Harris inflation legacy. And as far as our international reputation under Biden, it was nonstop embarrassment. Just ask the poor photographer at the G7. Can someone get Joe? Looks like he's wandered off again. We need to take this photo. The entire Biden presidency was a lie wrapped in incompetence. Even the press is trying to do mea culpas over their failures.
Oh, my God.
As a reporter, I have a confession.
Come on, man. Come on, man. This last 4 years, the Democrats should be ashamed. The voters, they have nothing to do with it, this really, in my opinion, because everybody just, these guys are voting based off of PR. They just blast you with so much mails, TV, radio ads. They show you the best of Biden, so you didn't even know what you were voting for. However, it's like the Democrats leaders, they should be really ashamed of themselves for deceiving the voters because you deceived them. Look at what they voted for. What is this? You spent millions and millions of dollars in 2019, 2020 to promote an image that was false. It was basically false. Look at this product that people voted for. This is look at this dude.
The entire Biden presidency was a lie wrapped in incompetence. Even the press is trying to do mea culpas over their failures.
As a reporter, I have a confession to make. I should have pushed harder earlier for more information about Joe Biden's mental and physical well-being and any signs of decline. The White House and the people around Joe Biden were absolutely adamant that suggesting anything, asking the question about whether he was in some physical, mental, or both decline was offensive.
Everyone who was defending Biden, covering for Biden instead of covering Biden, everyone who failed to bother to ask the obvious questions about his deteriorating mental and physical state, they should move on to other work. Because what you did is an astonishing dereliction of duty. And yet, those same individuals, some now offering these heartfelt apologies, they parroted the Democrats' line that Trump was a threat to democracy. My question is, did anyone elect Steve Ricchetti or Jeffrey Zients co-presidents? Because apparently they, and maybe John Kirby, they were all running the country, not Joe Biden. That's democracy? They didn't have a problem with that, though, did they? But let's not kid ourselves. The D.C. Uniparty has survived using the same tactics Biden's been using. By lying, concealing, destroying those who question, and of course, celebrating failure. Unfortunately for them, and fortunately for us, they ran into a buzzsaw of bravado and brains in Donald Trump. Since 2015, he's been an existential threat to the D.C. dinosaurs who've trampled on all of us for decades.
We have people that are morally corrupt. We have people that are selling this country down the drain. Our country needs a truly great leader. We need a leader that can bring back our jobs, can bring back our manufacturing, can bring back our military, can take care of our vets. We're going to be thriving as a country, thriving.
For the past decade, he's dominated politics, not just here, but across the globe. Is anyone more popular than Donald Trump? No. And it's not just because he's charismatic or is rich or has a beautiful family and a beautiful wife. It's because he never quit fighting against all odds. The modern political era has never before seen his type of guts and grit. And it is inspiring. Imagine not only having to stand up to the far left, the deep state, the legacy media, but also to the fools in your own party, to the FBI, to the corrupt prosecutors and biased judges. Think about that. He's so smart, he turned a mugshot into a campaign rallying cry.
In the end, they're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I'm just standing in their way. Here I am. I will never be deterred. I will never stop fighting for you.
Liberals wonder why Trump supporters hung in there with him and why their support never wavered. It's because he never wavered, because he never stopped fighting, even after he was almost killed. The Democrats have no one, and I mean no one, who can match him. That's why they lost. And as this historic year closes, this man is the Democrats' legacy.
Got to keep fighting. Got to make clear we're not going away. We're not going away. I'm not going away. I'm going to be deeply involved in the environmental movement, deeply involved in foreign policy, deeply involved in all the things I've been involved in before.
Talk about good news for America. Two utter failures, Biden and Kamala, apparently are both going to stay in the fight. Yay. I mean, delusional, venal, narcissistics. Yeah, Washington's just full of them. Why should we be surprised? But right now, they're on their heels, despite all the bluster. And the man who led to their crushing defeat, Donald Trump, has vowed to bring common sense and order to Washington. A practical foreign policy, more modest federal spending, a regulatory rollback, better trade deals, and a strong border. All of this can be done, which Trump started in his first term. We know that. This is all, of course, a threat to old Washington, and their lobbyists and activists are already gearing up for a fight.
Extreme MAGA Republicans are marching America to a painful government shutdown that will crash the economy and hurt working class Americans.
Hundreds of pro-migrant protesters outside the ICE Federal Detention Center in downtown LA demanding
a sanctuary ordinance in every city.
Let them know that we're going to mobilize and we're going to fight. We're ready to continue that American tradition of resistance and protest.
Of course, we know this. Transformative change isn't easy. You're going to have a lot of opposition, even if you defeated all the big players. But the more than 77 million Americans who voted for Trump in 2024, they're not going anywhere. And we know that the increasingly diverse coalition that he put together is only going to grow larger, with more Hispanics, more African Americans, more former Democrats, younger people, older people, all people together working for a better life for their families, which of course will make America strong again. So these are exciting times. This has been an amazing year to do the angle every night and also just to mull over and hash over all these issues. And when we think about this year, know this: Donald Trump has given us a chance to make this one of those turning points in history, just like when Reagan won in 1980. So with the help of his cabinet, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and others, he can do more than drain the swamp. He can return power.
This is what I don't get, though. So they have liars lose, truth tellers win, and they have Joe Biden and Kamala. But then they have Trump and Elon Musk, not J.D. Vance. That's a little, I don't know. But of course, Elon is smart. He helped the legend win the election. We know that. But JD is the vice president elect. Shout out to Laura Ingraham. All right.
Utah Senator Mike Lee joins me now. So you have an idea we're hearing. What is it?
I've got an idea. Look, Jesse, it wasn't Congress that did this. It was 4 people, 4 guys. I call it the law firm of Schumer, McConnell, Johnson, and Jeffries. This whole debacle was avoidable. It was preventable, foreseeable. In fact, it was foreseen and warned of. But these guys are falling into the same rut that they've been in for a long time, which is the firm, as I call it, negotiates a spending bill in secret, releases it just hours or days before we're supposed to leave for the Christmas holidays, and inevitably it's full of garbage, and that's what happened.
Wait, so you're saying, hold on, just back up. So you're saying these 4 people, you're saying Jeffries, Johnson,
Schumer, McConnell, Johnson, and Jeffries, the firm.
Okay,
They did this.
McConnell and Schumer,
guys.
they cooked this up for the last 85 days in secret, dropped it on everybody Wednesday, and this is where we are.
Yes, and it has failed. It's failed miserably because the American people are awake. They have access to X, they have access to Waters World, they have access to information and to apps that will help them quickly digest this information. This does not work. It's an historic moment. It's fallen apart. And as a result, somebody's going to have to lose their job over this. I don't think the speaker is going to remain in power. That's my prediction. I'm not in the House. If I'm correct in that, and I think I am, we need bold new leadership, outside leadership, and I think it needs to be a Doge speaker. It needs to be either Vivek Ramaswamy or it needs to be Elon Musk. Look, I was over here a couple weeks ago, House and Senate Republicans for a Doge caucus meeting.
You guys think that Elon Musk should be involved in this amount of politics? I know, it's part of the Department of Government Efficiency, but if he does become the House Speaker, Vivek should do it because Vivek already is a politician. But Elon is not. Elon is not a politician. He's a businessman. He should just really stick to that. He's a smart person, but once you start going into politics and it becomes really dirty, that he may not even be as efficient as he was during the campaign trail for the OG. This is just my opinion, but what do you guys think? Do you think Elon should consider being the House Speaker? I think Vivek, that's good enough.
I've never seen, we're like, herding cats, Republicans on Capitol Hill. Never seen so much attention, so much respect for 2 people in our entire caucus, in the Senate and in the House.
So you're officially nominating right here on Jesse Watters Primetime, either Vivek or Elon to be House Speaker. Doesn't have to be a politician, could be anyone, can be Speaker. Do they want that job?
I don't know. Look, I'm a little bit skeptical. Elon is kind of busy. He's got like 54 companies that he's running, right, and trying to get to the moon. I suspect Vivek is a little bit more open to it than Elon. I'll take either one of them. Vivek, Elon, if you're watching, please sign up. America needs you.
All right. Well, I don't think Johnson likes you now. Next time you guys see each other walking through the halls of Congress, he's going to probably kick you in the leg.
He is a good man. He's a friend. He's been a friend for a long time. Great person. He's lost control of this process.
Okay.
And I don't know how he can remain in power.
All right.
We need Elon or Vivek as Speaker.
He's a friend, and you just threw him overboard. Man,
yes,
politics is tough, Senator
Well,
Lee.
it is, especially when you try to jam an entire country with the 1,500-page bill that nobody's read, and you try to trick them and bully them into doing it. Some of us take that personally, Jesse.
Yeah, no, I don't like it either. I think it's terrible, and we got to stop doing it, and it's got to stop now. All right, Senator Mike Lee, we'll see how it shakes out. We'll let you know what Vivek or Elon say.
Thank you.
Fox News Alert, the deadline. The deadline to avert a government shutdown is midnight tonight, Eastern Time. But a spending deal still looks out of reach as Democrats and Republicans play the blame game.
Aisha Hasni is live on Capitol Hill. Hey, Aisha.
Hey, good morning to you, Lawrence. I am keeping my eyes on the Speaker's office just down the hallway from me because there might be some activity here in the next hour. I'll tell you about that in just a second. First, I want to get to what President-elect Donald Trump is thinking right now. Is not moving from his position after the bill imploded last night. He was actually up at 1 o'clock in the morning writing this on Truth Social. Take a look. He writes, Congress must get rid of or extend out to perhaps 2029 that ridiculous debt ceiling. Without this, we should never make a deal. Remember, the pressure is on whoever is president. Now, despite Trump and Elon Musk endorsing this 100-page skinny CR, 38 House Republicans still voted against it. They said they did not offset raising the debt ceiling. They weren't happy with that. Johnson needed Democratic votes, but Leader Hakeem Jeffries came out last night, and he said he wasn't going to play ball.
The Musk-Johnson proposal is not serious. It's laughable. Extreme MAGA Republicans are driving us to a government shutdown.
So now President-elect Trump, J.D. Vance, Speaker Johnson, pretty much every Republican is trashing the Democrats.
The Democrats just voted to shut down the government, even though we had a clean CR, because they didn't want to give the president negotiating leverage during his first term, or during the first year of his new term. And number two, because they would rather shut down the government and fight for global censorship. They've asked for a shutdown, and I think that's exactly what they're doing.
Okay, so the question is,
yeah,
what
J.D.
is
Vance
next?
ain't got time like
Apparently,
that.
it is back to the drawing board for Speaker Johnson.
What's the play tomorrow?
What's the plan?
Stay tuned. Well, we keep hearing that. You gonna run another bill tomorrow, though? We'll see.
Okay, so apparently Punchbowl is reporting that the Speaker and J.D. Vance might be meeting with House Freedom Caucus members, and one more person in the room, it's very interesting, would be Trump's OMB director, the nominee for that, Russell Vought. He's been on the Hill working the senators through his confirmation process, so he is here in Washington, D.C., and apparently, again, according to Punchbowl News, those four parties will be meeting in the Speaker's office this hour. I will keep my eyes peeled. I'll get over there right now and bring you any news at the top of the 8 o'clock.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. Okay, so there's actually a live stream of the leaders, the Congress, men and women, voting on the bill right here. Let me see if I can get it for you guys so we can enjoy that. All right, let me see.
Told you so when I'm also trying to help them fix the problem they're about. That the Social Security Trust Fund vote is Mr. President.
Senator from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just wanted to get up and explain why I'll be voting against the passage of the Social Security Fairness Act a little bit later today. I'm going to try and keep the volume down and maybe the frustration down a little bit more today than I did yesterday, but I thought it was important to again explain why sometimes the tough vote is the right vote. To kind of lay the groundwork, as I am from North Carolina, I'm up for re-election in November of 2026. I've heard some people walk up and down the hallway and say that they really oppose the bill, but they're up for election in 28 or up for election in 30, and they're worried about the politics of it. I never worry about the politics when I'm convinced in my heart of hearts it's the right decision. And let me explain why. The Social Security Fairness Act is trying to address what I think is an inequity and a problem. Unfortunately, it's doing it in a way that is at the expense of $200 billion out of the Social Security Trust Fund without a dime offsetting it. Now, some of my fiscal conservative colleagues have said, well, no, it's not really depleting it because it's the Social Security Trust Fund, so it's not adding to our debt. But what they are forgetting is that when Social Security Trust Fund becomes solvent, the fairies don't come back and replenish the Social Security Trust Fund. We don't have trust fund fairies. What we have is a debt that is already over $33 trillion that we're going to be expected to write another check out of. And we're headed towards a debt crisis. So this bill, by everyone's agreement, even those who are going to vote for it tonight, pulls forward an insolvency that is consensus right now going to occur 9 years from now, pulling it forward by 6 months. And so I have to vote against this bill, not because I don't ultimately want to fix an injustice for a very small percentage of people who deserve a few $100s more a month. But the way that we've gone about it, it's going to be costly, and it's being done at a time where we're not plussing the accounts back up. And so I feel like my vote casting a note, I'm likely to be on the losing side. I understand that. None of these amendments are going to pass because if they do, the bill fails. We know that. So anybody that's pulling for one amendment or another, let me just show you how I can tell the future. Not a single one will pass. This bill will be voted out this evening, and it'll be sent to the president's desk. And once the president signs it, he will guarantee that the Social Security Trust Fund will become insolvent 6 months sooner than the 9 month, 8.5 months. Think about it this way, 8.5 years from now versus 9 years from now. It's going to pull $200 billion out, causing that to occur. It's actually going to provide some benefit that I don't believe the beneficiaries deserve, and it's really confusing that handful or that segment of the people who will get the benefit and casting them into a group that I think arguably maybe don't deserve the benefit. Anyone that should, we can take care of, but it's not $200 billion. But that's what happens when you don't have a single committee hearing on a bill. That's what happens when it comes from the House through something called a discharge petition. Bypassing all the processes comes to the Senate, and we never even have a hearing. We're going to have a vote later today for a $200 billion rating of the Social Security Trust Fund that is going to bring insolvency forward from 9 years to 8.5 years, and not a single vote or a single hearing has been held in a single committee on Capitol Hill. Now, folks, if you can't agree on the finances, if you can't agree on the fairness, can we all agree on the process? Something as weighty as this, we should have given it the justice it deserves and have a hearing on it. So for that reason, I'm going to vote against it. And then I'll be standing there reminding my colleagues I told you so when I'm also trying to help them fix the problem they're about to vote on to create. Thank you,
Woo.
Mr. President.
Yeah, that man wasn't playing around. 200 billion. All right. There we go. Inflation, inflation. Here we go. Who's next? Yeah, for sure. For sure. Somebody say we can all agree that we're broke. I don't know, because the government keeps spending money like drunken sailors. So yeah, I don't know. We may not be broke.
President.
Senator from Wyoming.
Thank you, Mr. President. As if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the en bloc consideration of the following bills. Calendar number 422, which is S 1348, and calendar 501, which is S 1890.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measures en bloc.
I ask unanimous consent that the committee-reported substitute amendments be considered and agreed to. The bills as amended be considered read a third time en bloc.
Without objection.
I know of no further debate on the bills en bloc.
If there is no further debate,
I ask unanimous consent.
the question is on passage of the bills as amended en bloc. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bills as amended are passed en bloc.
I ask unanimous consent that the committee-reported title amendment to the S 1890 be considered and agreed to, the title of S 1890 as amended be agreed to, and that the motions to reconsider with respect to S 1348 and S 1890 be considered, made, and laid upon the table all en bloc.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to rise just to spend a couple of moments discussing a bill that we just passed, and it's the Wyoming Public Lands Initiative. The Senate passed this by unanimous consent. This legislation is very important in my home state of Wyoming, something we've been working on for years. The bill would resolve the management status for thousands of acres of federal public lands across 7 counties of the 23 counties in my home state of Wyoming. These acres involve what are known as wilderness study areas. These are land managed solely for preservation, even though they're not included in the National Wilderness Preservation System. Well, the Bureau of Land Management studies these areas, and they study them to determine whether they should be designated as wilderness lands, or if these lands should be returned to multiple use status. Until Congress acts, the Bureau treats all of the lands as if it's wilderness. In other words, these lands currently under study are closed off to almost every use. For the people of Wyoming who rely on access to the land to make a living and for recreation, this just doesn't work. So in 1991, now here we are, we're in 2024, but in 1991, the Bureau of Land Management released a report recommending a balanced approach for these Wyoming wilderness study areas. Specifically, the Bureau of Land Management recommended that Congress designated some of the lands as wilderness and released the majority of the lands back to multiple use. Well, here we are, over 3 decades later, the lands still remain in limbo. That's why some of our counties began to work with me on the Wyoming Public Lands Initiative. And I want to thank these Wyoming County Commissioners for their collaboration going back 9 years, back to 2015. The bill, which I'm proud to sponsor on their behalf, generally follows the recommendations of the 1991 report. It strikes a balance between protecting these special places that people in Wyoming love, while expanding the multiple use areas that our state and local economies rely upon. The bill was developed by the people who live near the land and who will be accessing the land when this bill is enacted. It has been developed really from the ground up by the people who know the land the best. And this legislation resolves a decades-old stalemate. The bill is going to increase conservation. It's going to ensure that other lands can be unlocked and for uses that are important to the people of Wyoming and to our economy. Like, I firmly believe the people of Wyoming, not Washington, should decide how to manage these lands. So I want to thank my friend and colleague, Senator Wyden from the state of Oregon. We work closely together. We serve on several committees together. We live near each other and where we stay when we're in Washington instead of when he's home in Oregon and I'm home in Wyoming. And I look forward to continuing to work with him to get these bills passed into law and through the House and in the near future. So as I see my friend and colleague from Oregon on the floor tonight, I just want to thank him for his years of cooperation and working together as we have on the Committee of Energy and Natural Resources, and thank him for all of his consideration in allowing us to get this bill passed tonight. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Senator for Oregon.
Mr. President, this is a truly historic moment for my home state of Oregon, because the Owahis, which are really Oregon's version of the Grand Canyon, really should have secured protection years ago. But finally, as a result of the bipartisan support that my friend from Wyoming and I have, working with the incoming chair of the committee, Mike Lee, and the current leadership, we have been able to pass these important pieces of legislation. And the timing for my home state is really just extraordinary, because just yesterday, the congressman from rural Oregon, Congressman Bentz of the 2nd District, we put out a joint statement about how next year we intend to work together and with our constituents to come up with legislation that our whole state, urban and rural, could come together on to protect the ranching way of life in Malheur County and also our incredible treasures. And Congressman Bentz and I said we would work with our respective chambers' leadership to pass the bill into law. And then, Mr. President, overnight, and to the great excitement of people in our states, due to the ending hours of Congress where members are trying to find some common ground, we've been able to work with our leadership in the United States Senate, in this chamber, to get started on what Congressman Bentz and I told our constituents yesterday. And this did not happen by osmosis. The incoming ranking Senator, Martin Heinrich, and the incoming chair, Mike Lee, said that my bill, which cleared the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, S. 1890, the Malheur Community Empowerment for the Oahe Act, that they would allow it to pass the United States Senate tonight as an indication of the goodwill that all parties have pledged for next year. And as the chairman of the committee has noted, in fact, all the chairs, past and present, since I was the chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee at one point, understand that that's the key to really making some history in this extraordinarily important committee. And in our conversations with the incoming chairman, Mike Lee, he was particularly interested in the fact that Congressman Bentz and I are going to be working together to get this bill in shape so that people across Oregon will support it. And when he indicated that that was a priority for him, I basically said, that's exactly what we have in mind as Oregonians, what I have in mind as Oregon's senior senator. And I'm very happy to state tonight publicly to the incoming chair of the committee, the senator from Utah, that I intend to work very closely with Congressman Bentz to make this become law. Now, so everybody in Oregon understands, this bill does not become law tonight. But what it does is it sends a message from the United States Senate that when you get people of goodwill and willingness to find common ground, you can make real action happen. And the Oahe legislation that I worked for years with ranchers and hunters and fishing families and environmental folks has now passed the United States Senate. That's something that after decades of debate about the future of the Oahe, nobody thought it was going to happen anytime soon. In fact, yesterday people said, well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Now the United States Senate has acted, and acted, as I say, to protect the ranching way of life in rural Oregon and our treasures. And I hope that tonight's action will give all parties interested in the protection of the treasures of Oahe and interest in the ranching way of life. It should give folks at home the chance to know that we are going to be in a position to, in 2025, with the leadership of the Senate and the House behind.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. Okay, we're going to come back to this right here because it's a really long video. We're going to come back to it. But before that, I want us to talk about the drones in New Jersey. What is going on with the drones in New Jersey? Do you guys think it's drones? Because it's now appearing across the nation. Some people said they saw it in Augusta, Georgia. Some people say they've seen it in New York. Some people say they've seen it in Philadelphia. So it's like, what is this drone issue about? Do you think the government knows about it? This is my opinion, okay? I think the government knows about it because, come on, this is the United States, okay? The United States has, I would assume, the United States has control over its airspace. This is what I would just assume. And I believe that that's true. So the drones in New Jersey is causing a frenzy. Here we go. Check this out.
First of all, you have a very cool hat that we cannot forget about. You're officially in the Skywatch Task Force.
Yes,
But that thing next to it is a thermal.
So this is
camera.
a thermal imaging camera,
Yeah.
right? So this is something that I use to help identify the drone, if it's a drone or if it's a plane,
right?
To distinguish that, so it can see at night.
I want to show the audience here one of the images that you say may be a drone. Why? Why would you say that this image is probably a drone?
Yeah, so it had no lights. The camera picked it up. You could not see with the naked eye, and it's shaking because I had the zoom on full, but it was hovering. It was not moving. It was in one spot.
Okay, but let's show this other image of a flock. It looks like a flock of birds, right? A lot of people have been reporting that these drones were clustering, that they were flying together.
Yes.
What is this?
That's just
so those are a flock of birds. At first, I thought they might be drones because
they're actually a flock of birds.
They're actually a flock of birds. I watched them for about 30 to 40 seconds, and they flew off, and I kind of got attracted to them, just see where they would go. But after analyzing the video for some time, they are a flock of birds. They're not drones.
Yeah, and there were planes that you saw. I mean, so what's your bottom line here? I mean, I think two things. One, clearly, now that everybody is aware of this, everybody's looking up and they're seeing lights.
Yes.
What do you think writ large is happening here?
So I think there is something going on. We don't know what is going on. I think there are drones. I have seen some drones with this. They're small personal drones. I know that people have been reporting large objects, like car size. I haven't seen those yet, not saying they don't exist. But right now, this task force was created basically to get an answer for our community because we're not getting an answer anywhere else. No one's answering us. And we reached out and we're just like, hey, so we're going to do it ourselves. And so the community, we're empowering them to join us on these night watches, to send us information when they see it. We'll help identify it. We're logging it. We're putting GPS coordinates in there. We use flight tracking applications, so we can point up the sky and go, yep, that's a United flight. That's confirmed. We'll look through the thermal camera as well, because one thing that's really interesting, when you see planes flying in the distance, especially where I live out in Mendham, we have 3 big airports near us. We have small airports like Morristown. It's really hard to see in the night sky that they're planes because they all look low to the ground, but they're coming in for landing, or they're far away, or they're putting their landing lights on. This, without a doubt, can see through those lights that the planes have blinking, and you can see it's a plane or it's something else.
Yeah, we're showing an image of, what is
Yes.
it, very clearly, a plane.
A plane. So there was these planes were over 10 miles away in the beginning, and I actually thought, I have a video here, I actually thought that they were drones. It's like, yeah, I got some. And I watched them, and they did everything that they're supposed to do as drones would do. They were hovering, they were just staying side by side. And then I waited, and they started getting closer, and they got close enough for the thermal camera to pick it up, and I could see that they were planes.
I think it's so interesting how there was all this fervor, and then the story kind of disappeared from the headlines. And
I mean, you can never believe that the government doesn't know anything about the drones. It is just not believable. Why would you say, oh, we're trying to find out what is in the sky too, just like you? But don't shoot them down. Do not shoot them down. It may be dangerous, but we don't know what it is. What is that?
I don't know. I mean, does anyone have any theories?
You say
about
that in a
why
conspiratorial way.
No, I just think that there was a lot of speculation. We know now. There were people talking about Iranian ships off of the East Coast. I mean, that is not happening. There's no evidence of that. And so now that those theories have gone away, people have just stopped talking about it.
I think my friends in New Jersey are still talking about it. I mean, we still are wondering what the heck it was, because what they saw, like near the shore especially, they know the plane traffic fairly well in their area, and they could tell these things were massive. The videos I saw were crazy. And by the way, just because they haven't flown over Mendham doesn't mean they haven't flown elsewhere. And you have literally public officials like that mayor in New Jersey saying that we had lost a radioactive device, a potential nuke, and that they think that those were sniffing it out. The government needed much better PR on this and get out quicker. Absolutely. And the fact they didn't, it's on them.
But I also think that there is, I mean, we have to be a little bit more humble here. As Chris has experienced, you see something with your naked eye and you think, oh, that thing is huge, it's hovering, it's a drone. But it's not. Sometimes, maybe much of the time, it's not.
And that's the challenge, right? Of the see something, say something, and this broader environment of fear if you see something, the anxiety that people are just feeling across generations right now, where everything is suspicious if it's different. One of the challenges I think we had in identifying what this really is so different than how the Chinese balloon incident went down. But we had one firm government in power, sworn in administration. I think seeing this lame duck session, this is one of those situations where could have gotten more clarity and information from our national security officials if they were, deeply engaged and not trying to navigate what comes next.
So Chris, some of your colleagues on the task force do believe in the UFOs of it all.
I think that we all believe that there's something out there. It's not, I'm gonna, because in what I do with the wildlife, if I know there's a rare animal, I'll take a picture of it, and then before I go public with it, I'll verify it first. I'll get some experts to look at it. Social media is not helping here, because people take a picture with their phone, and all of a sudden it's like, the sky's full of drones. And then everyone starts to get nervous about that. And they should be nervous. I can't blame them for being nervous, especially when there are no answers from our elected officials.
So just to be clear, you all and your group have not seen any large drones?
Some on our team have.
Like very large ones?
Not recently. They haven't seen the very large ones, but they have seen groups of what they feel are drones.
Why you can never trust mainstream media. People, like real life people, are showing you, we saw this thing. And she's like, you guys, your team, you haven't seen any large drones. And then he goes, yes. And then she said, oh, like very, very large. So you go from large to very, very large. Listen to this girl right here.
Nervous, especially when there are no answers from our elected officials.
So just to be clear, you all and your group have not seen any large drones?
Some on our team have.
Like very large ones?
Not recently. They've seen, well, they haven't seen the very large ones, but they have seen groups of what they feel are drones. They've explained that, they've documented where they are. This group started pretty recently. This is really proactive of our mayor. I'm really happy to be part of this group. So I'm just getting out there in the past few days. We just started documenting all of this. So we're hoping to run into these. I mean, I really want to see one of these because that'll be really cool. It'll do great for my Instagram. So
I would like to see.
Here's what you won't be seeing. Yeah, here's what you won't be seeing. There's a brand of drone that was the most common and popular hobbyist drone, DJI, and they're a China-based company. Congress recently banned their use in the U.S. And part of that is because Chinese-owned companies have access to the data that travels on these drones. So that is one of the concerns about having unspecified drones in the air, is understanding what information and what's being collected on the American people.
Yeah, they also admitted some were law enforcement.
Well, yes.
And so which
I would also like to know what
might be a
information
big
they are
catch-all,
getting.
yeah.
We just really,
Katie, last word.
this to me just goes back to a failure by the government on the higher level to give a clear answer to people. I mean, if they could go to Congress and give them the classified briefing, and they said the members of Congress were okay with that, how much of that is so classified and so important that you can't tell the citizens so they don't have a war of the worlds? Everybody thinks there's UFOs, and alien abductions happening. We really should have had clarity for everyone and help put this to rest a long time ago.
I think that's
Okay. This is why people don't trust their appointed officials. This is why they do not trust them, because the media uses all sort of languages to twist and turn what the facts are, courtesy of or on behalf of the elected official. But here we are. Don't know what is in the air. Now sky. Just wow. Chicago is going wild. Chicago is going wild. If you live in Chicago, put it in the chat. Okay, we're streaming both ways. We're streaming horizontally and we're streaming vertically. So some of you are like watching on the horizontal. I think Kate Gamer is watching on the horizontal. Zima is watching on the vertical. But thank you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. Double tap your screen to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you wish to, but it would be better if you subscribe because you're watching it right now. Thank you so much. With that being said, the Chicago mayor may be losing his job. Listen to this.
All right, the first city Tom Homan plans to clean up is Chicago, where residents are lashing out at Mayor Brandon Johnson.
You caused all this money to go to illegal immigrants, not Harold Washington. You gonna be held accountable for it.
All you illegals, you ain't gonna have no Merry Christmas. You're gonna have a Merry Deportation Christmas.
We need Tom Homan here in Chicago. We need Donald Trump. We need to start voting different in these cities like New York and Chicago. You got a 14% approval rating, so the people is looking like they're telling you that you're fired, man. Can you do the job, Mr. Brandon Johnson?
No, you can't.
And how did Mayor Brandon Johnson respond to his constituents? Well, he threw him out of the meeting.
Thank you. Please restore order. Can I have your attention, please? Ladies and gentlemen, please go to your closest exit.
Joining me now, Chicago resident Vashon Tunsil, who was at that Chicago City Council meeting. Vashon, what's the biggest problem you're seeing with illegals in Chicago right now?
Well, they're getting all of our resources, all the American people in Chicago. Brandon Johnson has given these illegal immigrants over, $500 million while American people struggle and starve on the street. But not only that, now he wants to protect these illegals that's here in Chicago, Illinois, illegally. And I just don't believe that's the right thing to do as a mayor when you have a 14% approval rating. And then the people realize why our city is so bad. It's because they keep voting Democrat.
Oh, which brings me to the point. I mean, it can't be more obvious in Chicago how bad things have gotten. I mean, I think I hadn't been to Chicago in maybe 3 or 4 years when I went to the DNC with the Fox crew to cover the Democratic convention. And they cleaned it up a lot, but it was different. It's a different place. And you go to the South Side, it's even worse. And it's always been a little bit dangerous, but it's much worse. So what is it? How do they lock down as many of the voters as they do lock down to vote for the Democrats?
Well, I mean, me personally, I just think it's like a generational thing. Like their mothers and their fathers, they tell them to vote Democrat because the Republican, they're for the rich and they're for the white people and this, that, and the third, which I don't think to be true at all. I think that Republicans, they have their best interest for black people. The Democrats, they're the ones that started the KKK. And me personally, me growing up, and I see the Democratic Party, you look at people like Barack Obama, and it's just like, it's not looking good for what they're doing to these inner cities like Chicago and New York. And I just feel like it's just brainwashing at this point.
Man, what did Obama do for Chicago? I mean, Vashon, oh wait, hold on one moment. The incoming border czar, Tom Homan, is actually still with us. And he's been listening in on the conversation, everything you've been saying. I think he wants one of your hats. Can you tell Tom directly what you need him to do in Chicago? Vashon.
Well, first I want to say is thank you so much for joining me, Tom Homan. I really appreciate these words with you. And sir, please, I don't care what Brandon Johnson tell you, please come clean up Chicago, Illinois. We need you, Tom Homan. This place sucks right now. And like you said.
Oh, man. Your people. This is why I don't like the Democrats, man. This is why I think, well, I like everybody, okay? Well, I don't like everybody. But this is why I think that the Democrats are just bullies. They like to bully you, try to tell you what to believe, what to say, how to say it, who to vote for because of your whatever, where you're from. My dog right here is wide awake and is saying, Tom Homan, you better pull up right here and clean this place up, okay? He said, come clean this up. I don't care what Mayor Brandon Johnson tells you because he capping. He definitely capping. It's a lie.
Our city sucks because our governor sucks and our mayor sucks. You were absolutely right about that. And I mean, it couldn't get more broad than that. And I just really appreciate you coming here, just speaking to the people of Chicago, you know, listening to us more than our.
Damn. Well, I'll be damned. Look at Tom Homan's face. Yo, that guy ain't even saying thank you. Oh, yeah. A little smile. No, he like, we're going to do the job. Listen to him.
Own mayor, you're actually doing a better job than the mayor is when it comes to listening to us.
Tom?
Well, look, I was there 2 weeks ago, and I spoke to the people there, and you're right. I said the mayor sucks and the governor sucks because of them protecting illegal aliens in your city, especially criminal illegal aliens. Their number one responsibility is protecting the communities. So look, I made a promise 2 weeks ago that I'd be back, and I will be back. When this operation starts, I will be in Chicago. And men and women at ICE are going to be on the streets doing their job. So I appreciate your support. And I met with, when I was out there, I met with black pastors. I met with leaders of the community. They're all on the same page. The only one on a different page is the mayor. And we're going to prove to him that we can come in and make that city safer with or without his help.
Thank you so much, Tom Homan.
Yeah, Vashon and Tom, we're going to check back with you in, let's say, a couple of months, Tom, to see how things have changed. We'll give you 3 months to see how things are progressing, because it's not going to happen overnight. This is going to be a process. And if I know one thing about Tom Homan, he's unstoppable once he actually has.
Yeah, Tom Homan is not playing. Look at his face. Looks like a border wall. His face, literally, looks like a border wall. So, I mean, they're not joking around. Chicago is going, it's about to be red. May flip red. Chicago may flip red.
Chaos erupts over far-left Chicago mayor's $40 million short-term loan in next year's $17 billion budget, forcing Brandon Johnson to clear the public twice in order to get it passed. Look at this.
This meeting will stay in recess. I want to ask that the Sergeant at Arms clear every member of the public.
Unbelievable. After 4 tries, the budget passed by 2 votes, while Johnson championed the spending package as a new way forward for the city. What's he talking about? Our next guest is one of the 23 aldermen who voted against the budget. Anthony Beale joins us now. Anthony, bring us inside the room last night. What was it like?
Well, it was total chaos. When you look at everything that you saw just in that segment, it was just total chaos. And we're trying to pass a budget. We're trying to get real answers. We're trying to do what's right by the people of the city of Chicago. And we couldn't get real answers from the budget director. We couldn't get the right information we needed to make a good, educated decision on how to move the city forward. And we're still spending money, hundreds of millions of dollars on migrants. And we want to continue to fine and feed the people of the city of Chicago when we continue to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on migrants.
And there's no end in sight because he doesn't want to cooperate with somebody who can bring that number down by lessening the number coming in. In fact, they say in Chicago, the numbers you're giving under Brandon Johnson, the mayor, $527.5 million, let alone the inconvenience of seeing him in the airports and police stations and around. I mean, obviously people are fed up. Doesn't he hear this?
Well, we would hope he would hear it, but it doesn't seem like he does. We've tried working with this mayor. It's about 15 or 16 of us who have been around and know the city and know the budget very well, and he won't even talk to us. He won't even entertain our ideas about trying to right-size the city of Chicago. We tried to right-size it. We tried, our budget is extremely bloated. We've increased our budget over $5 billion in the last 4 years. We can't sustain that type of growth. And so we tried to right-size it. We tried to have cuts and efficiencies. And this mayor totally ignored all of that and wants to just continue to spend money.
So, Anthony, real quick, for people outside the city that don't look at the budget you see, what else are you spending things on that you shouldn't be?
Well, when you see that the mayor, at the end of the day, he bought about 6 votes to get his budget passed. He gave aldermen letters that said, we're going to do certain things in your ward that should be getting done anyway, because it's the right thing to do. You shouldn't have to hold services back and hold things over people's head just to buy their vote. People are starving to get things done in their wards, and the mayor's holding services and goods over their heads in order to get their votes. And these people are so desperate to do something for their communities, they sold their vote very cheap.
But it's almost like they have no options, right? It's incredible. It's not like your education system is booming and the recreational facilities are fantastic. They're not. Must be really frustrating. Continue to fight, Anthony. Thanks so much for joining us. Bring us inside the chaos.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy, Genesis. Chicago may be flipping red. Also, I know you guys have heard about the Fani Willis situation with Trump's case. It has been tossed out because, of course, she was sort of having an affair with another attorney that was linked to the case. Don't forget, we're still going to go back to the bill that is being strained, but I just want to cut off and show you what's going on.
Take a load off, Fanny, because you're off the case. A Georgia State Appeals Court has booted Fulton County DA Fani Willis and her entire team from President-elect Trump's election case. But the indictment against Trump still stands. The court citing Fanny's appearance of impropriety thanks to her soap opera-worthy affair with ex-special prosecutor Nathan Wade. Who could forget this?
I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth, Judge. And it is a lie. It is a lie. If you're confused, you think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial. A man is not a plan. A man is a companion. As you know, Mr. Wade is a Southern gentleman. Me, not so much.
So, Judge, the whole team gets kicked off the case, but the case still stands.
Yeah, I have a feeling the case is going to disappear. They have several options. I mean, the court made the decision to throw her off, throw her team off, throw the office off. And in a case like that, it may go to another office within that particular region. Maybe the chief administrative judge will do that. But honestly, I just don't think that a prosecution of a sitting president, if they have to start ab initio from the beginning, it makes any sense now. But I just want to talk about that woman. That woman is an embarrassment to me. For her to walk into that courtroom like that, as if she's in charge, pointing her finger at the judge and everyone else, she would have been taken out in the paddy wagon, okay? I would never have tolerated that in a courtroom. that means it's like a circus down there. You know, end of it. That's it. The whole case should be thrown out. They were corrupt. $654,000. She gives her lover. He takes her on vacation. Then she says, you know, I really gave money back, but it's from the cash. Where the hell did you get the cash? You work for the state. That's all I have to say.
So, Jessica, so back in June, Fani Willis claimed that the reason her case was falling apart is because she's a black woman. It doesn't really
yeah, we
kinda,
go.
Like, when you look at it now, in retrospect, it doesn't. That argument doesn't really kind of hold up, does it?
Seemingly not. Sometimes it's not what's best to lead with, and there has been disappointment, obviously, in her handling of all of this and her team, especially because there was such clear evidence in the indictment, like, you know, Donald Trump calling Brad Raffensperger up and saying, find me, you know, thousands of votes that I didn't earn.
Well, it wasn't quite like that.
Or Trump allies pushing conspiracy theories
Don't
about
convict
about the
him. You
election.
haven't heard the evidence.
What?
Which is not illegal.
Or, okay, well, what Rudy did, let's say, to those election workers. What he owes like $148 million or something like that. Okay, so those are real things that happened. And obviously, people are going to do whatever possible to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't face these trials. Eileen Cannon throwing aside that case, again, not because of the evidence, but because she says that
Because she followed the law.
Well, then why are there special counsels that have been appointed in other
Because she
situations?
followed the law.
But why have there been other special counsels appointed, but Jack Smith is the one that's a problem?
Because he's
The
nuts.
judge.
Oh, it's the nuts defense. I think I'm done.
They told
Oh,
me
yeah.
to let you finish.
That's
That's why I used one word.
I appreciate it. Whoever said that, Amy, it was probably you.
No,
Thank
it was
you.
Brett.
Oh, Brett.
So Jesse, all this comes out as more and more evidence kind of piles up that shows there really was a connection between the Biden White House and these prosecutions all over the country.
So they're suing Fani to turn over the emails that show that she was in cahoots, and she won't turn over the emails. And she's probably stupid enough to write down colluding with the White House. So she's hiding it, and she's going to be held in contempt if she doesn't turn this over. I mean,
It's with the cash in the box.
so I'm looking forward to that. She was runner-up to Trump for Time Person of the Year for me. The shamelessness, the poor grammar, the poor pronunciation, the inability to grasp basic geography. I think she only has two routes for the career now. She could either be mayor of Atlanta or a Real Housewife of Atlanta, because she has all of the qualifications. And I'm gonna miss Fani. I loved her. Not in that way, Jessica, but not in that way, Jessica. Not the way Wade did, but I appreciate Fani from a television perspective.
Maybe she gets a pardon. We'll see. But
From Biden?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So wait, everybody's just getting pardons? Every single person is going to get a pardon. What? Look, Joe Biden is just pardoning everybody. He's pardoning everybody. What is this? He first pardoned his son. Now everybody's just throwing the word out. I'm gonna get a pardon. Maybe I'm gonna get a pardon. Oh, there's gonna be a preemptive pardon. Oh yeah, you're gonna get a preemptive pardon. Like, when did it start? Shout out to Joe Biden, man. He's just pardoning every single person. I heard he's going to pardon Liz Cheney. We're going to check out Liz Cheney after this, but he might be giving Liz Cheney a preemptive pardon. I'm telling y'all.
But it is kind of interesting. All of this is playing out at the very moment where President-elect Trump wants to start cleaning house at DOJ. This kind of gives him an upper hand in all that.
Absolutely. And imagine being Fani Willis. She thought that she was going to be a part of the takedown of Donald Trump. And she orchestrates the case and gets the mugshot. And she thinks, oh yeah, now the mugshot's going to take him down. And the mugshot makes him more popular. Then
Facts.
And then she was kicked off her own case for criminal activity. I mean, honestly, Shakespeare could not have written it better.
You are so right.
It's so true. I have always believed that if Shakespeare were still alive today, Donald Trump would be his favorite character. He would rewrite all of his plays, all of his histories, all of his comedies, and Donald Trump would be like, he'd be from King Lear all the way to Falstaff, and he would love it.
Wow, look at that. Shakespeare.
Yes, he would love
Impressive.
it.
Click here.
Yeah, he would love it. He would absolutely love it. Luigi Mangione. What do you guys think about Luigi Mangione? Kay Gimmer. Shout out to Kay Gimmer. She's one of the moderators on the channel. She's been doing a wonderful job. And I hope Kay Gimmer gets better. She spoke about a little some on the Discord. And if you haven't joined the Discord, if you want to join the Discord, what did I just do? Okay, yeah, I didn't do anything. So if you want to join the Discord, I'm going to put the link up there. But shout out to Kay Gimmer. Kay Gimmer, you haven't chimed in to this right here. Luigi Mangione, the United Healthcare CEO killer, allegedly. What do you guys think? Everybody put it in the chat.
Mangione is in federal, not state custody tonight, facing.
Some people are saying this guy is a hero. They're saying he's a hero. You think he's a hero, or you think he's just running his own race? And this shouldn't be condoned? Because a lot of people now is raising money, is raising hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not him personally, but like his supporters are just sending in money for his lawyers, for his well-being and all that. Like, he has a lot of fans. Check this out.
Fresh and largely unexpected charges on top of the first and second degree state murder counts, among others. A New York grand jury has indicted him on. Perspective now from CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig, also defense attorney Danya Perry. Like Ellie, she's a former federal prosecutor. We should also note that Karen Friedman Agnifilo, the suspect's attorney, used to be affiliated with her law firm. CNN's John Miller joins us too, as does New York City Judge George Grasso. Good to have you all on. John, I want to begin with you because you're learning new details about this tug of war, to some degree, between federal and state prosecutors.
Well, that's right. And what we've been following today, and really since last night, is kind of a tug of war between the United States Attorney, the federal prosecutor in Manhattan, the place where Ellie Honig used to work, and the Manhattan District Attorney. So this morning, they were set up with barricades in front of 100 Center Street, the state courthouse. The judge was up on the 13th floor arranging where a camera would be to shoot the arraignment. There was a special arrangement made to book the prisoner in the district attorney's office, and by mid-morning they found out he wasn't coming to be arraigned in state court by the district attorney on an indictment of felony murder charges, including murder in the first degree. Instead, he was taken into custody by the NYPD, handed over to the FBI, and he was going to federal court. And this was hastily arranged, caused a lot of confusion. But what you're not seeing, and this is important to note, is, and we've kind of seen this before in other cases, any kind of battle between the FBI and the NYPD on who gets the arrest.
Right.
What you're seeing is federal prosecutors going for a jump ball on this case. The federal prosecutors using kind of a unique charge to go after a murder, which is usually a state charge. And interestingly, the state prosecutor is using what is usually a federal charge, terrorism.
Yeah, notable. Okay, Danya, you're a criminal defense attorney as well as a former federal prosecutor. It struck me, as Shimon noted there, that we heard something of a potential line of argument from Mangione's defense attorney, noting the differences between these two cases, the New York state charges with a terrorism enhancement for causing fear or attempting to strike fear among the population, and the federal one had a stalking element to that. I wonder, as a defense attorney, do you see an opening there for the defense to say, hey, these two are somehow conflicting?
I'd like to say that I do as a defense attorney and as a former colleague and friend of Karen Agnifilo's, but there's no tension really to exploit at all. The federal and the state charges can be largely overlapping. They could really actually be the same because they're two different sovereigns. They could be wildly different, and there's no basis. There's no defense or legal argument that I could think of. So analytically, it's kind of interesting, and that's true. And what was just said is also true, that typically the terrorism charge is a federal one and stalking is a state one. It's all, a little muddled right now. As you said, I think I was doing a podcast with Karen by mid-morning. She still thought she was going to arraignment in state court. And so there's a lot up in the air and a lot of unknowns. But I think that one was just almost more comparing and contrasting the two charging instruments and saying, that's interesting, but of no moment legally.
Ellie, some have raised questions about the risk, given the enormous and somewhat shocking outpouring of support for Mangione in the wake of this horrible cold-blooded murder, concern about jury nullification in this, in which case a jury might say, yeah, the evidence.
And this is what most Americans have been contemplating on. Do you think he's going to get a jury? Like, is he going to be judged or convicted or whatever by a jury of his peers? Because if he is given a jury of his peers, he's most likely going to walk. Like, most likely going to walk. Because this guy has fans. Like, literally, he has fans. TikTok is going wild. People are tattooing Luigi Mangione on their body, on their skin. People are selling his merchandise. DJs are putting his face in clubs and parties and carnivals. It's like, but this guy is a suspect. He is a suspect that gunned down the United Healthcare CEO. And don't forget, the United Healthcare CEO guy has 2 kids, 2 little kids, but nobody's talking about those little kids. People are saying Luigi Mangione is a legend at this point. And now they're calling for more, I guess, jungle justice for the CEOs. And it's just unthinkable. But this is where we are right now in America.
Towards conviction, but we're still not going to convict him. What is your level of concern about that as a possibility?
Well, Jim, I was always worried about jury nullification, even in the most routine cases I handled as a prosecutor. All it takes is one juror and you have a hung jury. So it's always the kind of thing that keeps prosecutors up at night. And yes, the risk here absolutely is elevated. I've never seen an outpouring of affection and support for a defendant charged with a vicious murder like we have in this case. However, I want to say a couple things. One, the jury selection process is really effective. Not perfect, but really effective at weeding out people who were biased. We saw it in the Trump trial. We saw half of the jury just got up and walked out because they felt they were too biased. The other thing is, it's one thing to pop off on social media, to post a meme or something. It's another thing to sit through weeks of evidence about someone who shot someone in the back, to get a jury instruction from a judge like Judge Grasso, who tells you your job is to apply the law and then to nullify. So yes, you have to be aware of it, but there are important systemic controls here against it.
Yeah, and listen, every time that video comes up, as we just showed it there, it's and the planning that went into it, and what we're learning about his manifesto saying, right, this will tick a lot of boxes, and to whack an insurance executive. I mean, it speaks to planning. I wonder, George Grasso, I want to play a clip of something that Karen Friedman Agnifilo said on this program last week about Mangione's possible defense, another potential line of defense. I should note this was before she was announced as his attorney. Have a listen.
The evidence is going to be so overwhelming that he did what he did. And I hear what you're saying about being radicalized. I hear what you guys are saying. But as a former prosecutor in that office, I would be concerned that you have someone who is a valedictorian of his class. He was brilliant his whole life. He comes from this great family. I mean, something changed, right? Significantly, something changed. And they're going to, I think, potentially have a not guilty by reason of insanity potential defense.
She's now his lawyer. George Grasso, do you see that as a potential line of defense?
Well, I know Karen well and I respect her, but frankly, I don't see it here. The reason I don't see it is because there's so much publicly available information. Like, for example, I read the federal complaint today and a lot of other data. This is a very careful and methodically planned event. Remarkable. And credit to the NYPD is they were able to put in hundreds, if not thousands of hours to make an almost reverse documentary of the actions of this individual. So to show insanity to the level that he would be excused criminally, I think is a long shot. I also think it's really bad news for Luigi Mangione and good news for the rule of law, the action that the federal government took today, because that brings this case to a whole nother level, because the murder charge involves there, people aren't really talking about that too much, involves the death penalty is not available in the state of New York. And it also involves a methodology of, using the stalking laws to weave in murder, I think is pretty much right down the middle of the plate based on the evidence as we have now. On the other hand, Alvin Bragg, who will have to take a back seat here, he can talk all he wants and give press conferences that they're going to move on parallel tracks. They're not going to move on parallel tracks. The federal government is going to dictate the pace. And Bragg, I think he made the right move using terrorism to get to murder one, but that's kind of untested at this level. And if he got a conviction, would certainly go to the Court of Appeals. So for a lot of reasons, it makes perfect sense for the rule of law, for the federal government to go first, use all their leverage that they have with this being a death penalty case. Bragg takes a back seat. We see what happens there. And ultimately, we have justice. And anyone who thinks Mangione is a hero really needs a psychiatrist. I can't find anything heroic in stalking a man and shooting him in the back.
A father or two, right, as well. So it's just remarkable to see that so common. Danya, did you see it playing out similarly here, that the feds have the upper hand now?
Yeah, and I think Ellie would probably agree with me, having seen so many of these turf wars. The feds, I agree with the judge, the feds usually win that tug of war. We saw both acting U.S. Attorney Edward Kim and District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who grew up together at the U.S. Attorney's Office, actually speaking very nicely, as colleagues, but about we're going to run in parallel tracks. But in practice and in reality, that is not going to be the case. I do agree that the feds will surely go first, even though at first blush you would think these seem more suited to state charges. But when that's bumped up to first-degree murder, I agree as well with the judge, I guess, on everything, that makes it a lot harder and therefore easier for the feds to go first.
One thing I would say, Jim, is at the statement that they issued from the U.S. Attorney today, they said that the current plan, so they left it qualified, that the state case, the DA's case, would go first. But that leaves them a lot of room to negotiate for pleas in both cases and to package them together.
Okay. Luigi, nobody condones murder, especially when you have kids involved. This man was the head of his family. He has 2 kids. Now those kids are fatherless just because somebody wanted to take the law into their own hands. I don't condone that. It's absolutely absurd. Now, like I always say, you could do good things for bad reasons, and you could do bad things for good reasons. This is neither. This is like, nah. If you have some sort of disagreement, which a lot of Americans do have a lot of disagreements with the insurance companies, and that's why people are actually happy. This is why this guy has garnered a lot of supporters, because people are not happy with the insurance company. This is just the facts, okay? A lot of Americans, probably like 70% of Americans, or maybe more, do not like the health insurance company in the United States. Just the way the health care system is being ran in the United States, a lot of people don't like it. And that's why this guy is just getting so many supporters. And of course, the people on top are going to be like, this is not something you should be condoning. However, the people under, most of the people under, not everybody, but a lot of people under who have sick family members and have gone through the healthcare system, gone through the insurance system, and it's like, this is total BS. But this is not the way to fight it. Okay, you could protest and you could do any of those stuff, but like to go end somebody's life, that's absolutely uncalled for. And now he has to face the full consequences. But if he's been given a jury of his peers, I'm not sure he's going to see inside of a jail or a prison because he's going to walk. And like you heard, they're saying he might be, his lawyers might be going for insanity or whatever. But it is what it is. But I want to show you guys this right here. I want to show you guys right here. Party City is closing down. Party City is closing down, y'all. For the Dems, the Democrats in the chat who always say Joe Biden has been the greatest president of our generation. There you have it. Another huge cup, absolutely needed company because kids have parties. Christmas is coming. Now, Party City. This right here is fresh from the oven. This is 4 minutes ago. Today's Friday, December 20th, 2024. Okay. No. This was updated today by 3:06 p.m. today. Party City is going out of business. Says New York CNN, Party City is closing down all of its stores, ending nearly 40 years in business. 40 years in business, guys. 40 years. Shout out to Bidenomics is working, chat. That's all I can tell y'all. Bidenomics is working. Okay? For the Democrats in the chat, Bidenomics is working. This is what you get sending Party City. I remember, like, even for my spouse's birthday, we went to Party City to get her balloons and decorations. Every birthday, we go to Party City to buy my beautiful, gorgeous daughter a balloon. Now, Party City is closing up, boo-boo. You're not going to be able to buy balloons in Party City. Oh, yeah. I'm telling you. But we're going to figure it out.
Yes.
What is that, a slime?
No. It is a bracelet.
Bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
Look at clear, too. So, Party City is gone, y'all. All gone. Kate Gamer says, I love that store. It's been around for a long time. Absolutely. It's been around for a long time, but now they have to go. Shout out to Bidenomics. This is what you get. This is what we get. Bidenomics. You can never make this up. Like how many top companies like this, very essential companies like this, have gone under the Biden administration? How many? Something is wrong, guys. This is just unsustainable. It's sad to see a big, necessary company like Party City go under. Party City is closing, to a couple of employees. Friday's being viewed by CNN. CNN is walking down. Pressure, Party City is very best if I have not been enough to overcome its financial challenge. Imagine they have financial challenges. Despite their very best efforts, it's just not going to work. Oh man, it says it's really important for you to know that we have done everything possible that we could to try to avoid this outcome. But of course, Bidenomics ain't gonna let it work. Biden goddamn nomics. This is what we get, guys. Party City is down. So if your child is having a birthday party, or you guys are having like a little whatever get together in your yard, balloons and all that, you're gonna have to go to Walmart. You're gonna have to go on Amazon.com. But this is what Amazon.com is going through right now. You can never make this up. Bidenomics. Listen to this, man. Amazon is going on strike. What? Amazon is going on strike. Christmas time?
Not great timing. Thousands of Amazon workers striking today, just 6 days before Christmas. The strike happens in big cities from Atlanta to San Francisco. So will those packages that you ordered, I've got some of them out there at this point, are they going to make it in time for Christmas? Let's go to Fox Business correspondent Madison Allworth, live at the picket lines here in New York. Hi, Madison.
Hey, Martha. So Amazon is saying that they're not going to have disruption, that packages that were
It's over.
We did witness 2 arrests. The first one happened.
Oh.
With our union, but they failed to do so. They're ignoring us. They're ignoring the law. So we're here to send a message that Amazon has to come to the table, respect the law, respect us.
And so obviously people watching at home, we're so close to Christmas. They might be thinking, why now? Why do this with just...
There you have it. Even Amazon is going on strike. What is... Wait. Somebody has to wake Joe Biden up and say, sir, what is going on? The whole country is going in shambles. People are striking. Well, Jeff Bezos has been spotted with the 47th, where he, well, I guess demanded for, well, he can't demand nothing. He asked for a dinner meeting with the legend, and he got it. Too sad that during the holiday period, Amazon has to go on strike. Party City's closing up all stores across the United States. So now you can't even have parties with balloons. Okay? And you can't even order those balloons from Amazon. You can't. You can't. Amazon is on strike right now. Oof. Ladies and gentlemen, it's spicy. Too spicy. All right. Wanted to share that with you guys. Elon Musk is definitely a big issue. Elon Musk is definitely a big issue for the Democratic Party, as well as potentially some Republicans. Check this out.
Charlie Hurt got up early for us. What's happening, Charles? Nice to see you, sir. As of 7:23 p.m. East Coast time last night, here we go. Elon Musk, a super fair and simple bill was put to a vote, and only 2 Democrats in Congress were in favor. Therefore, responsibility for the shutdown rests squarely on the shoulders of Representative Jeffries. I guess that was version 1.0, right? Because then we got a version 2.0, and this morning it's 3.0. What do you think about now the pressure that Vivek and Elon applied to lawmakers on X 2 days ago was profound, I would say. And what I've thought for a long time is when companies don't experience that pressure, they freak out and they fold. And we have seen that over the past 4 years. So when lawmakers see that pressure, they kind of freaked out too a little bit. How is this new relationship going to go? And can we say whether or not the incoming president is happy with it or satisfied yet?
Well, it's going to be a rodeo, and it's starting early. But not only is it a freak out for lawmakers who are not used to that kind of pressure, I think to some degree it's also, it has to be sort of weird for Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to be dealing with this whole art of herding cats, which is not like running a company or running an assembly line where you can actually make decisions that make sense and make changes. It's going to be a whole lot more complicated than that. And of course, Democrats are sitting on the sidelines just sort of like laughing at all of it. I do think it's kind of interesting that the best thing that Republicans can do is the smallest temporary fix that doesn't fix any of the massive problems in Washington, but just gets them until the new year when they have a whole lot more, not a whole lot more, a little bit more power and a little bit more room to maneuver. And Democrats are doing everything they can. They will vote almost unanimously to prevent them from getting that one little soft kick
across the.
Yeah, because Democrats, they can't find their footing on a policy or a message. The only thing that they can figure out a way to do is play a little politics and see if they can drive a wedge. So here is call for number 2. This is the media and the Democrats saying that Elon Musk's in charge.
Shameful that they allowed Elon Musk, who now everybody's calling President Musk, to blow this deal up.
Musk decided to change the deal. Do I call him President Musk?
We are in completely unprecedented times. The world's richest man, an unelected contractor reaping billions in government contracts, is calling the shots in the Republican Party. Who is in charge?
Okay, so you know I've talked about the Democratic bat signal. So it went out this morning. What did
Divide and conquer. This is what the Democrats will be doing for the next 4 years. They will try to put Elon Musk against Donald Trump. And if they're smart, if they are both smart, both of them, they won't let this get into their head, because it's like those are two power players. Trump is the duly elected president of the United States, 45th, now the 47th. Musk is the wealthiest human being financially that the world has ever seen. So these are two power players. They need each other to change the game. But one thing is for sure, Trump has changed the trajectory of politics in the United States. And this is what kills the Democrats. This is what is bogging their mind. It's like, how has this guy amassed so much influence? How is he doing it? He's doing it by talking directly to the people. He's doing it by saying what the people are already saying. They don't like the way the border is. They already said that. He's just echoing it. They already said they don't want to send billions of munitions to other countries to settle wars that are unnecessary wars in the first place. And you guys say, you know what? We're going to stand for democracy. Somebody's going to have to stop Putin. No. Okay. Nobody cares. Okay, nobody cares. People are suffering here in the United States, working 2, 3, 4 jobs just to pay their bills. But you want to send billions of munitions to another country. Now, as of today, the government just passed a $1 billion whatever deal to Ecuador. $1 billion to Ecuador. And it's like the people in North Carolina are still figuring out what to do with their lives with the hurricane. So the people are just fed up, tired, absolutely tired. This is why the people voted for Trump massively. And if the Democrats don't look in the mirror and actually listen to the people, 2028 and 2032 will be even brutal, like absolutely brutal for them. Listen to the people. It's called public servant. You're serving the people. Don't try to tell the people what you think. Okay? Listen to what the people are saying. The people say they don't want this. Support that. Easy.
Rosa DeLauro just said, she said, the world's richest man, okay?
Yeah.
Here's Hillary Clinton tweeting this. If you're just catching up, the Republican Party, taking orders from the world's richest man, is on course to shut down the government over the holidays, stopping paychecks for our troops and nutrition benefits for low-income families just in time for Christmas. So the word has gone out. This very rich woman is going to say that the world's richest man is the one who is evil here.
There's so much going on here. Well, just to be clear, Elon Musk is operating in unison with Donald Trump. He is not. Donald Trump is president. You know who's not president? Hillary Clinton. You know who's never been president? Hillary Clinton. You know who? I was actually trying to think this, going through the math. I don't think there's any person alive who has had more votes against her for president of the United States who's never been president. And obviously, they're very good at playing these games. And this is why Republicans always get blamed for every one of these shutdowns, no matter how much it should fall on both. It's a pox on both of their houses. No. But they always win because, like you say, they put up the bat signal. They come up with a good line. However, I'm not
not sure that this works this time long term. The problems are so huge and intractable, and the megaphone has been sort of passed around a little bit. Donald Trump has a pretty good megaphone these days, which is why he won the presidency. And if you're willing to break things to fix things,
and to spend your political capital,
and to spend all of your political capital, and we've seen that with Trump, that he's willing to do that, then I think that long term, this is going to be a really ugly couple of weeks, probably a couple of months.
You're here for it.
We're here for it, but I also think it's possible it could wind up ending differently.
A couple of things that we will pick up on as themes throughout the day today into the new year. Voters voted for substantial change.
Yes.
56% in our voter analysis. Of the 56%, 70% of them voted for Donald Trump. Let me finish here. Biden, all right, NBC News, Biden's on the sidelines. Congress scrambles over looming shutdown. So just watch these stories throughout the day today and into the weekend until they figure something out eventually. Charlie, thank you, Sarah.
Yep.
New report claims First Lady Jill Biden is seeking revenge for Democrats' poor treatment of President Biden. From the coup to take Biden out of the presidential race to the backlash over son Hunter's pardon. The First Lady is reportedly urging President Biden to, quote, settle the score with several one-time allies. Quote, Jill views Democrats on Capitol Hill, the wider party, the Obamas, staff inside and outside the White House, the media, and all of Washington, D.C. with such misguided resentment that I can't imagine she isn't encouraging Joe to burn the whole thing down.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. This is what I always ask the people who keep saying that Joe Biden was one of the greatest president of our own time. What did he accomplish? Can you put it in the chat? And don't put in the CHIPS Act, okay? Because that's the only thing the Dems always say. The CHIPS Act. He put in the CHIPS Act into play. And he did the infrastructure bill. CHIPS Act, infrastructure bill. CHIPS Act, infrastructure bill. That's all they keep climbing on. CHIPS Act and infrastructure bill. Border in shambles. Foreign policy, absolutely wild. Inflation going goo goo gaga. Everybody's in distress. There's, like, right now, there are a lot of homeless people compared to when Trump was president. Price of gas has gone up. Mortgage rate is off the chart. The Fed just cut rates like 0.25%. What is that? But okay. Dams are still going to protect their own, which is, it is what it is. That's what they do. All right. Somebody said in the chat here, in the vertical chat, Trump's action spoke louder than words. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right to try. First Step Act. Opportunity zones. And for people who don't know about the First Step Act, that was the prison reform that Obama could not get done. Or maybe didn't just, I don't know, maybe didn't want to do it. But the First Step Act freed a lot of people from different backgrounds, different race, different creed. Helped a lot of people. Prison reform was like one of the biggest things that I think Trump did. But he also did the Abrams Accord. The border was safe. Nobody was talking about the border because that wasn't even a conversation. Okay. Ukraine, Russia never existed. Never existed. There was a low tension, but not to this level where you have to fund what's going on. And then people have been dying for what, over 2 years now? Israel and the Palestinian people, Iranian people. So all of this stuff is just, it's just, nah, we're not going to take this. Thank God an adult is back in the White House on January 20. Yeah. It's on, guys.
Despite his better judgment. Yowza. Michelle?
You know, it makes you wonder if Jill planted some butter or grease on those steps that Nancy Pelosi recently slipped on?
Oh.
Like if she got there first and sort of oiled the steps so that Nancy might fall and break her hip. Did anyone else think of that about Nancy Pelosi falling and breaking her hip?
We kid.
You know, we kid. But listen, they're so concerned about his legacy right now, but they continue to diminish it with the student loans, with the pardons and the commutations, with all of these stupid things that they continue to do and say. And the Hunter Biden, you know, I think it was PolitiFact the other day said the lie of the year for 2024 was Trump's and Vance saying that Haitian immigrants were eating pets. Hang on, that's the lie of the year? Not, I will not pardon my son? Not Joe Biden sharp as a tack? That's not the biggest lie of the year. They called the Haitian immigrant lie is so consequential. Like saying that Biden was on his game wasn't consequent. I beg to do. This is a dishonest administration. It has been, and everything around it is.
I'm not suggesting that you know something about revenge, Emily.
It is in my DNA.
Emily. However, this doesn't seem potentially off base to suggest the anger inside the executive quarters.
And if you take longevity as any indication of actuality, then we've been hearing since before this president was president that Jill Biden had a massive issue, for example, with Kamala Harris, that she carried a chip on her shoulder for the offense that she took on behalf of her husband. That frequently throughout the entire 4 years and prior to that, she took personal hubris at how her husband was treated or things that was said about him. I also think it is no secret that she was the gas behind the vehicle of having him run again. I think that he shoulders a ton of the ego blame, but there was definitely, when you talked about how the agencies can run on their own for quite a while, you know, or at least for some time without truly a leader, I don't know if he would have declared for a second term, frankly. And I think given the volume and energy on her side, it was clear that the gas was coming from her. So it, yes, makes sense that the anger is shouldered by her as well. And I think, look, we saw all the wearing red. I do think she voted for Trump. And I think she is gleeful that Kamala did not win, as is her husband. They are very happy.
Remember, she essentially ran the last cabinet meeting. And there had to be someone it had to be Jill Biden propping Joe Biden up for the last several years. I sat on this sofa, not last July, but July last year, talking about we could see that he was in cognitive decline. Any American could see what was going on.
And she spent time with him morning, noon, and night, so she knew better than anybody the cognitive decline that we all saw. She knew it better, and she didn't care. Let's think about the rest of Jill Biden's life, though. So she spent the last 4 years, really the last probably 15 years or more, being able to fly around the world, being greeted as some kind of an honorable figure, which she still is. She's going to be a former first lady, but she's had a meal ticket with the Biden family, business, whatever that entails, right? We'll probably never know. But think about the rest of her life. She's going to be pushing probably Joe Biden around in a wheelchair, having to tend to his needs. She's not going to have the fanfare. She is angry, not at the Democrat Party. She's angry that this is over for her, and she's bitter about it. I watch enough Real Housewives to know exactly what Jill Biden is feeling right now. And it's the hatred of the fact that all of her glamour and esteem is slowly trickling away, and she's not going to go out without making some waves.
And guess who the soon-to-be former first family might have to live with in Delaware? Hunter.
Yikes.
Well, party at their house.
I'd be bitter.
Any street cop will tell you, I'm glad you guys came to me last, because any street cop will tell you, it's a lot easier to get in the middle of two guys fighting than two women fighting. And apparently Jill really has it in for Nancy.
Facts.
Well, my question is this. They want to burn the whole thing down. I want details. Burn what down? You lost the House, you lost the Senate, you lost the president. There's nothing left to burn. You know, the sinking ship. Right now, the USS Democratic Party has slipped beneath the waves. There's nothing really left here. So I don't know where all this is coming from. And it scans to me like a fight in the day room of an old age home.
Oh.
I mean, really, what are they fighting about? Pelosi, Jill Biden, you know, retire already.
A lot of
Jill Biden. Kay Gimmer says she probably voted for Trump because you saw Trump used her image to promote his fragrance, the 47th Fight 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 fragrance on Truth Social and on X as well, I think so. But the way she was looking at the 47th president like some hero, like, my knight in shining armor. So she was looking at him in that picture, as well as her daughter, like the father I never had. But yeah, she probably voted for Trump. But also, Joe Biden is just, it looks like is relieved. Is just fully relieved of all of his duties, ready to go and relax and just watch the dominoes fall. Because it's like, look, I told you guys, and I gave you Kamala because I know she wasn't gonna win, because I told you guys to leave me up here. Even if I'm falling off stairs, falling off airplanes, and slipping on world stages, then just let me do it. But I need to be the next president as well. But they said, nope, you can't do it because you were a disaster. Democrats have a huge problem coming forward.
New developments to bring you surrounding those mysterious drone sightings in New Jersey. The FAA just announced nearly 24 temporary restrictions banning drones from being flown in certain parts of the Garden State. The agency citing, quote, special security reasons.
CNN aviation correspondent Pete Muntean is here with all of the answers. Right, Pete?
Yeah, not the first time that drone restrictions have been put in place since this drone frenzy began, but this is by far the most sweeping set of restrictions we have seen. The Federal Aviation Administration just made this announcement. Drones now effectively banned over certain critical infrastructure in New Jersey, the epicenter of this drone panic. Temporary flight restrictions are now in place over 22 different spots. They stretch from as far south as the Oak Creek and adjacent Salem nuclear plants on the Delaware River to as far north as the New York City suburb as Cedar Grove. Each drone ban is centered on a power station operated by utility provider PSEG. Target here, clearly recreational drones, commercial drones, police, disaster relief, all still allowed. Also, this does not prohibit traditional airplanes or helicopters. Want you to read here, though, the text of the notice to drone operators. It essentially says, mess around and find out. The United States government may use deadly force against airborne aircraft if it is determined that the aircraft poses an imminent security threat. The keyword deadly force. What is not clear is why these specific spots. Remember, the purported drone sightings that initially kicked all of this off were initially associated with military bases, and one of the first drone restrictions to be put in place was over Picatinny Arsenal. It's where the United States Army conducts a lot of weapons testing. So still a bit of a mystery here, and the FAA says it put these restrictions in place at the request of the Department of Homeland Security. It says it is doing this out of an abundance of caution, but still no specific imminent security threat.
Mess around, find out. That is that's on
I wanted to use the more colorful language.
Yeah,
but
that's
daytime television.
That's on the Muntean family crest.
That's right.
Speaking of mess around, find out, Pete, you talked yesterday as you were doing a report about these drones in New Jersey that there had been an uptick of people pointing lasers at planes, seemingly trying to point lasers at these drones, try to figure out what they are. Obviously, a very dangerous situation for airplanes, and the FAA is now putting out a warning.
Super dangerous. You can buy these laser pointers online. I have one in my desk drawer, $29 from Amazon. That's the image there from a passenger on an American Airlines flight that was going from Raleigh-Durham to LaGuardia. He said he saw this blue laser illuminate the plane over New Jersey. This was last Friday. Now the FAA says there's been a huge uptick in these laser strikes. Typically, the FAA gets about 30 pilot reports nationwide every night. Every night. Just this past Tuesday, the FAA got 123 nationwide, 24 of them over New Jersey. So essentially, average day in the U.S. localized entirely over one state. And the big risk here is that this can temporarily blind pilots, and this is typically during some of those critical phases of a flight, when you're down low about to land or taking off and still climbing. So it's a really, really dangerous thing, an $11,000 fine from the FAA, and it is a felony.
Bad news. Good warning, though, that it's out there.
Mess around, find out.
All right. Pete Muntean, thank you so much.
Anytime.
Well, new this morning, the FAA has placed multiple drone flight restrictions over certain parts of New Jersey. The restrictions are largely aimed at limiting drone flights over power stations and infrastructure. And this announcement comes as officials have repeatedly said there is no threat with the increased alleged drone sightings in the Northeast. My next guest, Will Austin, is an expert in drone technology. He's president of Warren County Community College in New Jersey and founder of its drone program. Will, thanks for coming on. First of all, what do you make of these drone flight restrictions? Do you think that they're necessary?
Well, I think at this point, with the way the public is seeing drones, that it's probably necessary to put up the temporary flight restrictions over areas. The nice thing about that is when we talk about the drones that I've personally witnessed over the last month, they're small recreational drones, small commercial drones, and they have a technology in it called geofencing. So they can stop the drone literally midair from entering into one of these areas. And if you're already in the area, the propellers on many drones will not spin at all, so you cannot take off.
Well, someone listening to this right now might say, well, why hasn't that been done before to prevent some of these incidents that are happening, like near Boston Airport and military bases?
Yeah, so not every drone has that technology in it. We have to remember that drones have been around since before 2016, before there were even rules. I was flying drones before Part 107 came out. And the other thing that people sometimes forget is that these are aircraft. We're calling them drones, and a lot of times you got them off Amazon, or maybe you got it out of Best Buy or Walmart or some other kind of store like the hobbyist store. So they're often mistaken for toys. They really are not. They are aircraft that have to follow all the restrictions of the Federal Aviation Administration. And we've had drones in the sky for many years now with very, very few incidents. So most of the drone professionals or drone flyers out there are very conscientious of the rules. And we maintain to this day the safest airspace on the planet. The FAA does a fantastic job of doing this. So we want to remember that
They keep saying the safest airspace on the planet, the world, on Earth. But it's like you don't even know what's in your own airspace. Why? Why?
a month now since I first heard about the drones. No one has seen a large drone as described, or at least not been able to provide evidence, I should say, for that. And the small drones have had very little incidences. But with the media attention, we got a lot of people, I think, flying at night for the first time. And flying at night is much more difficult than flying during the day.
And the FAA is saying that pilots are now reporting a dramatic increase in laser pointer hits from the ground since these mysterious drone sightings and since all this attention has been paid to it. How concerning is this?
Well, to me, it's very concerning. And because if one of those laser pointers was to hit a pilot, especially on takeoff and landing when it is the most hazardous for aircraft, it could affect their orientation. They could be disoriented, and it could affect their ability to land that plane or take that plane off safely. So you don't want to point laser pointers at anything in the sky, especially this time, well, ever. But think about all the people coming and going for the Christmas holiday. We're about to end our semester here, as are many other colleges. A lot of kids are going to be flying home. You don't want to be doing this because the drones that are in the sky right now there has been no evidence that they pose any kind of threat. And it wouldn't matter if they did. Your laser pointer is not going to have any impact on that drone. The only thing you can do with that laser pointer is affect manned aircraft in a negative way.
All right. Important message there from you, Will Austin. Thank you.
Okay, so hey gamer, it's not coming up on my end. So we are going to go back to the bill that they're working on right now. Well, it's already going to pass anyway. It's already going to pass. So, yep. We're going to go back here and then we're going to finish that. Shout out to Zimmer. Good night, bro. Where were we? I think we're here.
of medical research in this country is devoted to pediatric conditions. I thought, well, pediatric, under age 18, maybe it's, 12% of the population, so I guessed 12%. They said less than 1%. Less than 1% of medical research funding in the NIH and other agencies was devoted to pediatric conditions. There was a kind of a, I don't know, it was a conventional wisdom that, oh, we don't put research into that, but if we can research adult conditions, we can kind of apply it to pediatric conditions, which everyone here knows that's not the case. Many pediatric conditions are very different than adult conditions. So I began to work with the Miller family on a bill to increase research at the NIH and other federal agencies for pediatric conditions, especially pediatric cancers of the kind that killed Gabriella Miller. The following year, in 2014, I partnered with Virginia Congressman and then a Republican leader in the Senate, Eric Cantor, and others to pass the Gabriella Miller Kids First Pediatric Research Program to fund NIH research on pediatric cancer. And the 10-year bill that we passed is up for reauthorization this year. I've partnered with Senator Jerry Moran, my colleague from Kansas, to reauthorize it with the support of colleagues on both sides, numerous colleagues. The Republican House has passed a version of this bill. The lead sponsor on the House side is Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton, who is retiring because she has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of supranuclear palsy, which is an advanced form of Parkinson's disease. My colleague Jennifer Wexton is no longer able to speak without an AI-assisted device. But in this last few days of her time in the House, she has made the passing of the reauthorization of the Gabriella Miller Act her chief priority. The reauthorization was included in the health package in the bipartisan version of the CR bill that we negotiated with the House. But that package was left on the cutting room floor of the CR that was just passed the House. And advocates of the bill, including Ellen and Mark Miller and others who care about pediatric research, were bitterly disappointed. I'm going to vote for the CR when it comes over from the House. But if I'm going to have to explain to advocates that I share their disappointment for the fact that this 10-year program, which has now produced more than $125 million in research into pediatric cancer, is going to be left on the floor, I have to at least make an effort here on the floor to authorize this program going forward. The good news is the bill that Representative Wexton has put in the House was authorized flat funding for another 5 years, and I give credit to my colleagues on the Senate Help Committee because the Gabriella Miller Act was reauthorized in the Senate for 10 years at an increasing level of funding, beginning at the current funding level of $12.5 million a year, escalating to $25 million over the course of 10 years. But time is late. No time to fool around. The bill that has passed not only a committee but a House was passed in the House of Representatives, 5-year funding at its current level, $12.5 million a year, to continue to invest in research into children's cancer and pediatric conditions. I respect my colleagues' sincere commitment to responsible federal budgeting. And one of my colleagues, Senator Paul, I've worked with him to hopefully lift an objection that he had to this bill by agreeing to work with him to make sure that there's not other overlapping programs where we're spending money to do the same thing. We have recently talked about other legislative initiatives that we'll work on together. My understanding as I stand here today is with this commitment I've made to Senator Paul, he's dropping any objection to including this by unanimous consent. And I think while it's not everything I hoped, and it's not everything that the Senate Help Committee did in a bipartisan way, it would continue this important program. Gabriella Miller, when she was diagnosed with brain cancer at age 10, didn't go quietly into the good night. I think that's a Dylan Thomas line. She instead said, I'm going to raise every bit of money I can for cancer research. And in the last year of her life, she raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in cancer research on her own, with little bake sales and fundraisers. And the brain tumor that was in her brain was the size of a walnut, and she created a nonprofit foundation called the Smashing Walnuts Foundation. And the comments that I make tonight and the effort that I undertake with Representative Wexton truly are to honor her and to thank her parents for their advocacy. In particular, I really want to thank her mother, Ellen Miller, who's been a force of nature in creating this program and keeping it going. And we need to keep it going. It's bipartisan, it's bicameral, and it's making groundbreaking research possible. I ask my colleagues to let it pass into law. And so, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that, as if in legislative session, we should ask the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions be discharged from the further consideration of H.R. 3391, and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report.
H.R. 3391, an act to extend the Gabriella Miller Kids First Pediatric Research Program at the National Institutes of Health and for other purposes.
Without objection, the committee is discharged, and the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time.
Without objection.
I know of no further debate on the bill.
Is there further debate? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is passed.
I ask that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Without objection.
That was a very touching story. On to the next. This is pretty
I'm
cool.
not sure if that's good news or bad news. People need to know, yes, the government will stay open and it will not be chaotic. Congress can adjourn, which is probably a good thing when Congress adjourns. But the thing about government staying open is we will pass something called a continued resolution. What does that mean? It means we're resolved to continue. Continue as we have for really decades. We will continue to spend money regardless of whether we have it or not. We will continue to spend money at a pace such that we will accumulate about $2 trillion in debt each year. The deficit will be about $2 trillion. Now, the spending is comprised of a lot of different areas. It's about $6.8 trillion in spending, and we bring in about $4.8 trillion in revenue. So it's about a $2 trillion mismatch. A lot of the spending is entitlements. Probably 2/3 of the spending is entitlements, but this body refuses to address entitlements. So as part of the continuing spending tonight, keeping government open, all of the entitlements will be taken off board, and there will be no reforms to entitlements, no reduction in spending in entitlements. They will continue growing, somewhere between about 5% and 6% a year. Almost everybody on both sides of the aisle acknowledges that entitlements are the problem. Entitlements are driving the debt. What we vote on, people call a budget, or another word, they call it discretionary spending, is about $1.7 trillion or so, about $2 trillion. Of that $2 trillion, about half's military, half's not military. Well, the military's been taken off the table also, primarily by Republicans, but Democrats complicit as well. No military spending will be addressed, no waste in the military will be addressed, and the Pentagon will not be audited. They've said for decades the Pentagon needs to be audited, and the Pentagon says we're too big to be audited. Leave us alone, we are too big. Occasionally we'll find some things, $500 toilet seats or, $800 hammers, things like that. But overall, we have no idea where the money's going, and neither do they. They sometimes talk about hundreds of billions of dollars really literally missing, that they have no idea. But it's taken off the table because the powers that be say military is sacrosanct, cannot be looked at, and must have increased spending. So all the entitlements are going up. That's 2/3 of $6.8 trillion. The remaining $2 trillion is half military. It's going up, and nobody's looking at it either. So we have discretionary. Non-military discretionary spending is part of the budget also. And we couldn't come to an agreement, but other than we're going to be resolved to continue spending at about the pace we are. It'll be short term, and that would be bad enough because the spending will accumulate and is accumulating about a $2 trillion deficit. But that's not enough. This has been a horrendous week for fiscal conservatives because we are not going to just continue as we have been doing, continue loading on the debt. We are also adding to it in a dramatic fashion. This week, there'll be $330 billion added onto the spending. $200 billion of it will be for Social Security. And you say, well, we should want to help people. Why wouldn't we give people or senior citizens more money? Well, if we give new people more money, we have to take it from somewhere. We're going to have to either borrow it or we're going to have to print it, but it has to come from somewhere. Money doesn't grow on trees. So $200 billion increase in spending for Social Security. Where's the money going to come from? Now, I will offer an amendment that would pay for it. My amendment would be to raise the age gradually of Social Security, 3 months a year for about 12 years, and that would pay for the expansion of benefits. I think that's the only responsible way to do this. You want more benefits for people? You can't just, push the bankruptcy of Social Security and say, well, yeah, it'll go bankrupt in about 9 years, but maybe I won't be here, or maybe I won't be alive, and maybe it'll still exist for people. But shouldn't we care about what's going to happen to the future of Social Security? Shouldn't we care about how this is going to be paid for? But it'll be interesting to see how the vote is. I suspect I won't win, but we're going to have a vote on gradually raising the age. But here's the rub of how difficult it is and how far behind the 8 ball we've become. I proposed this solution 12 years ago, 13 years ago. When I did, it fixed 2/3 of the shortfall. If you raise the age gradually from 67 to 70, about 2 or 3 months a year, it wiped out most of the shortfall and fixed the problem 13 years ago. If you do it now, it only gives us 1 more year of solvency before bankruptcy comes. So we've taken a problem that was eminently fixable a decade ago, and at this point, if we were to do, and my amendment were to pass, it would pay for the expansion, but still the system is going bankrupt because we just keep adding stuff to it. Most people don't realize this, but Social Security actually will give you money no matter what your income is if you have teenage children and one of the parents is over 65. Now, somebody thought up this program and said, wow, this would be good. We should help out elderly parents that are taking care of teenagers. You can be a billionaire and file. I know people who are wealthy, whose kids drive Porsches, who are getting $1,500 a month for each of their kids because the dad is 65. Why would we do a program that's not based on income at all? Why would we let anybody join in that? Is that why Social Security is going bankrupt? No, that's just an element, though, of where the money's going. But everything that happens in the city is based on compassion. I feel for people and I want to help people. But nobody does anything based on math. Nobody really looks at this and says, well, shouldn't we do something to make sure it's paid for? What about next decade? What's going to happen to Social Security? Not a care. They just expand it, and it's feel good. You know, the free lunch, the mantra of free lunch is good. Here's stuff. Here's manna. Here, we're going to give you more money. Just be content. Take some Soma. Just relax. Here's some more money. But we're destroying the entitlement programs. Social Security is going bankrupt, and we sped up the bankruptcy this week by adding $200 billion. That is going to be concluded tonight. That's $200 billion in brand new spending to a system that was already $2 trillion short. Now, we also gave $30 billion to farmers. That's going to be in the package tonight, too. Now, why do the farmers say they need money? Many farmers are actually pretty well off and doing pretty well, actually. But they say that the tariffs during the first Trump administration hurt them so badly that they're still having reduced exports and they need more money. So we're still paying them for the tariff wars that were begun 4 years ago, and still half the people in the country are jumping up and down saying they want more tariffs. But what are we going to do, pay off everybody that doesn't benefit from the tariffs? Think about it. If you put tariffs on a steel mill and you say, well, we're not going to let the Chinese sell any steel over here, you have this bright, shiny steel mill and all the 1,000 workers stand in front and they love you because you're going to help them with their jobs and they're going to be more secure. But for every person making steel, there's 80 workers working somewhere buying steel. So what you do is you just ignore the other half of the equation. Why? Because it's easy to see the shiny steel factory. It's easy to see those workers. The 80 workers that are working for other industries, car industry, building warehouses, anybody that uses steel, fences, all these people buying stuff are scattered through small industries and you don't see them. But their economic impact at least equals, but probably exceeds, the one you're trying to benefit. We do so many crazy things. So $200 billion to expand Social Security won't be paid for, speeds up the bankruptcy and demise of Social Security. $30 billion for farmers, many of whom have other resources and really are not desperately in need of this. What happens to the borrowing? $230 billion. Well, that's not over. We also are adding $100 billion for disaster. And you say to yourself, well, you know, we got to help people in need. They've had storms, they've had flooding, we got to help them. Well, shouldn't we try to root out the waste and fraud in those systems, the people who are stealing money from these things? If you want to know how people steal things and how many people are stealing things, when we did all that COVID stuff, we stopped the economy and we just gave free money to everybody. We actually had foreign scoundrels, foreign fraudsters come in and take tens of millions of dollars, but we also had U.S. citizens, you know, buying Lamborghinis and Bugattis and all kinds of fancy cars on their government. We had people signing up for the program. One of them used an ID that had a picture of Barbie on it and got money. Many of them said, oh, I have 500 workers, and they didn't have any workers. They didn't have a business. So just fraud was rampant throughout it. This happens also in the disaster relief programs as well. People claim things they lost in disasters that didn't exist. But let's put that aside, the waste and fraud in the program, and say, we got to help people. We got to do something about disasters. Well, maybe there ought to be a decision-making process where we say, what's more important, Ukraine or Asheville, North Carolina? Do we have enough money to do both? Well, we do if we borrow it, but when we borrow it, we add to the debt, the Fed buys the debt, and you create inflation. It's no mystery why your goods cost more. During the last 4 years, groceries, meat, poultry, gasoline, rent, everything's gone up on average at least 20%. Now, did it become more precious? Did we all of a sudden lose a supply of things? No, the dollar became weaker. The dollar became diluted because we had to buy all this debt. So it's a bait and switch. What we do is we expand, you know, this week, $200 billion for Social Security, $100 billion for disasters, that's $300 billion, $30 billion for farm subsidies, $330 billion unpaid for. But the people here gathered, the vast majority of them that will vote for this will go home, pat themselves on the back and say, I brought you stuff. Isn't that what you want me to do, bring you free stuff? Well, it's not free. It has ramifications. They're destroying the dollar. They're destroying the country. And yet it goes on. Because it seems to be easy just to promise people something for nothing. So I have a couple of different solutions. To pay for the Social Security, let's gradually raise the age. 3 months each year. And what it does is it actually pays entirely for this $200 billion expansion and then some. It has to be done. It will be done at some point. I offered it 13 years ago, and every year we've waited, we've gotten further behind the 8 ball, and every year we've waited, we've gotten to the point where it's much more difficult to dig out of this hole. As far as the shutdowns, I'll admit that it's chaotic to go through this every 3 months, every 6 months, every year. There could be a way that we could actually say when there is an impasse and both parties don't agree, we agree to continue spending, but not at the same level. See, the vote today on at least some of the budget, the part that's not going up like this, on a small portion, will continue at the same level. But realize 3/4 of it's going up. We're not keeping it steady. So if we vote to keep it steady, does that really fix the problem? No, if you keep it steady, and even if you didn't increase spending, the budget never balances. Why? Because you're only keeping a very small portion of the budget steady. It's really about 16%. 2/3, 66%, entitlements. The remaining third, half military, half non-military. Military is going up at 3%. Oh, that's right, I forgot. Republicans have a great plan. Come spring, the Republicans are by simple majority going to bust through the military caps. The military caps are put in place, like all other caps, to try to restrain spending, and they're ignored. But in the spring, the first reconciliation package that Republicans will pass with a simple majority is to bust through the military caps. Military doesn't have enough money. We spend more on our military than the next 8 countries combined, and yet it's never enough. People say we're going to find waste and fraud. I'm all for it. I'm a big supporter of looking for waste and fraud. I'm a big supporter of getting rid of it. Guess what? If you don't look at the entitlements, you're not a serious person. If you don't look at the military, you're not a serious person. The problem will go on. In the first Trump administration, $8 trillion were borrowed. I'm a fan of Donald Trump. I supported him. I voted for him. But we borrowed $8 trillion. During the Biden administration, coincidentally, we borrowed another $8 trillion. They were equally fiscally irresponsible. Now, at least during the Trump administration, you could argue there was, COVID and the pandemic and all that. But the reaction was too much, and the lockdowns were not necessary. They didn't save any lives through the lockdowns, and we spent a ton of money that we passed out for people not to work. But the bottom line is, when you look at all of this, we have this enormous problem. I'm all for eliminating the waste and fraud. It's not enough. You have to look at the entitlements. You have to look at the military. Currently, we look at only about 16% of the budget. If you eliminated all of that, it's called non-military discretionary, it's part of the budget, you eliminate all of it, which isn't going to happen, the budget still never balances. You have to look at all the spending. We're not looking at any of the entitlement spending. In fact, it's worse. Entitlements are driving the debt, almost everybody agrees with it, and we're expanding the entitlements. Social Security, beginning in 2021, Social Security for the first time pays out more than it brings in taxes. It was the opposite for many years. Social Security brought in more than they spent, and they actually developed and had a reserve. For the last 3 years, Social Security's been paying out more than comes in. 2021, they paid out $50 billion more than came in. 2022, they paid out $22 billion more than came in. Last year, we paid out $40 billion more than we came in. If you had a business, or even if you had a social program, and you were paying out more than you brought in, wouldn't you try to reverse that trend? No, what we did this week is expand Social Security by $200 billion over 10 years. It's $20 billion a year. So if the debt next year for Social Security is going to be about the same as this year, it'd be $40 billion. We added $20 billion to that. What's the math? A 50% increase in our debt. So for someone who's fiscally conservative, this isn't a very good Christmas. This is a Christmas of just doing the same old thing. So when you hear CR or continuing resolution, realize your government is resolved just to continue doing the same thing. They're kicking the can down the road. The debt's going to continue to accumulate, and they're not doing anything to fix it. So don't be pleased with your people. Look closely. Who are my representatives, and are they doing the right thing? So we're going to offer a pay-for the Social Security. That will be one of my amendments tonight. We're also going to offer something called the Government Shutdown Protection Act. And what it will do is it says when there is an impasse, when Republicans and Democrats don't agree, that the spending would continue at a reduced level. The level we chose was enough to try to bring both sides together to actually form an agreement, but also we chose a number that would be enough of a cut to actually put us on a path to balance. So if my amendment were to pass, government wouldn't shut down from here on out, but the spending would be at a 6% reduced level. This actually balances the budget, and it's a pretty significant cut. Most of them will say, oh, it's too much, we can't vote for it. But the thing is even if my cuts were to go into place, even if my amendment were to pass, a 6% cut, it would take 5 years to get to balance in 1 year. Not to get rid of any debt that we've accumulated, but just to get to an annual balance. And they are like, oh, woe is me. We could never do it. We can't cut people. People deserve money. People deserve stuff. We have to give them more stuff. Do you know that the European Union, 16 out of 28 countries in the European Union, who many of them are considered to be socialist, actually balance their budget? I met with a socialist from Sweden. He was more conservative than everybody across the aisle. He was more conservative than half the Republicans up here because they thought that actual entitlements should be based on the economy. Their entitlements actually go down when the economy goes down. If the economy shrinks, their entitlements shrink. Just everybody knows it's going to happen. It's a bad year, you're going to get a little bit less. People would go nuts here. We do the opposite. So during the last 4 years, they created so much inflation that people's costs went up 20%. What do? We have to give cost of living adjustments to those on Social Security, and we did, but we were short even more money, and it made the problem even worse and sped up the bankruptcy of Social Security. So my amendment would say we actually have to reduce spending. Now, some people say to conservatives, both in my party and the others, they say, oh, you people are unrealistic. You'll never vote to raise the debt ceiling. But even if I had my way, and we got cuts significant enough that I think the American people would accept, but most of this body wouldn't, and we balanced the budget in 5 years, we would still accumulate debt over those 5 years. And I would vote to raise the debt ceiling during that brief period of time as we are on the way towards balancing our budget. But none of that's going to happen. What we are doing this week and what both parties will be complicit in, and I mean both parties, every Democrat here will vote for this bill, I assume. Every Democrat will vote to continue to be resolved to spend money at a rate that is $2 trillion more than comes in. But half the Republicans will join them. There'll be a minority of Republicans who will say, we're conservative and we shouldn't spend this much money. But we will offer amendments tonight, and people will get to decide where they are. And people at home will have to decide, are we going to live this way? How long can we live this way? What causes inflation? Can we not have representatives who believe that balancing our budget is the appropriate thing to do? So the amendments I offer today are such that I think they're necessary. I think they'll help us to save Social Security from bankruptcy, but they won't be very popular here. But I offer them in hopes that people will see them across America and say, at least somebody cares about the solvency of Social Security. At least somebody has the guts to say, this is what we would do to try to save and preserve Social Security, rather than just giving free stuff to everybody and saying, no big deal, you can have more. What? You want more? Here's more. Somebody's got to ask how we're going to pay for this. Someone's got to be responsible up here, and if you watch closely who votes on this amendment, you'll see who are the truly fiscally responsible people in the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield back my time.
Is the right of all mankind according to our Declaration of Independence. And the Georgian people rejected the Georgian Dream Party, which is really more and more becoming an arm of Vladimir Putin's Russian dictatorship. The Georgian people, when they voted, rejected Bidzina Ivanishvili, the pro-Russian oligarch behind the party. This is similar to what other free voters have done in other countries around in that area. Decade or so ago in the Republic of Ukraine, in the recent Romanian elections. It's happening also in Moldova. The people there do not wish to be under the thumb of a reincarnation of the Soviet Union under Vladimir Putin's dictatorship. And so they voted against the Georgian Dream Party, but the Georgian Dream Party, in charge of the election machinery, has tried to rig the election. And so the people of Georgia have risen up in response. And the Georgian Dream government, an arm of the Putin Russian government, has responded in tyrannical fashion. The Georgian Dream Party has worked to overthrow the will of the voters and has marshaled the power of the police to crack down violently on peaceful protests. In a number of days, Mr. President, the Georgian Dream Party could actually forcibly remove the democratically elected president of Georgia from power. Now, the Biden administration has taken baby steps, long overdue, and I wish they would be more forceful. Our American administration has now publicly sanctioned 2 individuals. The State and Treasury departments have sanctioned a senior ministry official and the Georgia Minister of Internal Affairs. Now, what do the sanctions involve? They involve blocking the offending officials of the Georgia Dream Party from transaction in American banks. We can do that. They've frozen any assets these Russian puppets have owned in the United States and revoked any visas they have for our country. And I applaud the administration for these steps, but they could do so much more. Of course, in response, the Georgia Dream Prime Minister, Kobakidze, announced that he would decorate these 2 sanctioned Russian puppets and give them state honors in their roles for quashing the protests. This is what's going on around the world. This is how tyrants act. Georgia Dream has thumbed its nose, of course, at our somewhat half-hearted measures. And so it's time, I would say, for the United States to demonstrate more decisive and timely resolve. Half measures are the wrong message at this point. So I call on the Biden administration to sanction the leaders of Georgia Dream, including Bidzina Ivanishvili, Kaska Kadzladze, and Prime Minister Kobakidze. The Republic of Georgia is the home of freedom-loving people. They were once under the thumb of Moscow, and they do not wish to go back. Vladimir Putin would like to have Georgia back in its orbit, just like they would like to have Moldova back in their orbit, just like they even wish to have Romania and certainly Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin is willing to rig elections to have his agents brutally repress the peaceful protests that are going on. I admire these Georgian freedom fighters. They strongly oppose Putin's interference, and Mr. President, we ought to stand with them. I call on the State Department and the Biden administration in the last month of office to stand tall with the freedom-loving Georgian people. We must continue our legacy of cooperation and shared democratic values with the Republic of Georgia. And I yield the floor.
Words, words, words. That's all they say. Words, less actions. More words. More words, no action. This is what they like. Lock themselves up in a room and talk for hours. Oh, isn't that's Chuck Schumer? That's what Chuck Schumer has to say.
60 affirmative vote threshold for the adoption of the amendments, that upon disposition of the Crapo amendment, Senator Lee be recognized to make a budget point of order, that upon disposition of the point of order, the pending amendments and motion be withdrawn, H.R. 82 be considered read a third time, and the Senate vote on passage of the bill, with 60 affirmative votes required for passage. Following that, the disposition, following following the disposition of H.R. 82, the Senate proceed to the consideration of H.R. 10545, that there be up to 30 minutes of debate on the bill, equally divided. Let's see, 30 minutes on the equally divided, and that upon the use or yielding back of the time, the Senate vote on passage of the bill, with 60 affirmative votes required for passage and with no amendments or motions in order in the bill. Further, that following the disposition of H.R. 10545, the Senate resume executive session to consider the following nominations on block, calendars 851, 853, 854, 857. That the Senate vote on the nominations on block without intervening action or debate, that the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table, and that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action. Following that, there be up to 2 minutes debate, equally divided prior to each vote, with all further intervening action, without further intervening action or debate.
Is there objection? Without objection.
I yield absence of a quorum. I yield the floor. Note the absence of a quorum.
Ms. Baldwin.
These guys are literally just scrambling around. Scrambling around. What?
President.
Oh, yeah. This ain't gonna work.
Social Security Fairness Act. Millions of retired teachers and firefighters and letter carriers and state and local workers have waited decades for this moment. No longer will public retirees see their hard-earned Social Security benefits robbed from them thanks to this bill. It's a very good thing that one of the final acts of the 118th Congress is delivering a huge win for working Americans. I thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for their outstanding work, particularly Senators Brown, Collins, Cassidy, who led the way, and all those who relentlessly across the country called their senators and got this done. And then, Madam President, tonight the Senate delivers more good news for America. Tonight the Senate delivers good news for America. There will be no government shutdown right before Christmas. This is a good bill. It'll keep the government open and funds and helps Americans affected by hurricanes and natural disasters, helps our farmers and avoid harmful cuts. We have order, please.
The Senate will be in order.
After a chaotic few days in the House, it's good news that the bipartisan approach in the end prevailed. It's a good lesson for next year. Both sides have to work together. But by dealing with people who've had trouble with disasters, by helping our farmers avoiding harmful cuts, this is a good bill, and I'm glad we're passing it. I thank my Republican colleagues for working with us to move this bill quickly through the Senate. It's a good outcome for America and the American people. I yield the floor.
Under the previous order, the Senate will proceed to the consideration of H.R. 10545, which the clerk will report.
H.R. 10545, an act making further continuing appropriations for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2025, and for other purposes.
There will now be up to 30 minutes for debate, equally divided.
Madam President.
The senior senator from Washington.
Madam President, I will not use 15 minutes, but I do want to just let our colleagues know that I am very pleased that we're on the verge of passing long overdue relief, desperately needed by communities who are recovering from disaster, as well as avoiding a damaging shutdown. The only reason it took so long and this much chaos to get here is that House Republicans chose chaos and chose to follow the whims of the richest man in the world. Needless to say, that is not how this should work. But I am glad that at the end of the day, we will avoid a shutdown and get disaster relief out to families and communities who are struggling after being hit by hurricanes and fires and floods and so much more. I worked hard with members on both sides of the aisle to finally get this aid across the line and to make sure we did so in a comprehensive way that meets the wide range of critical needs in the country.
Okay, thank you. That would be the end of that for that. We are gonna listen to Mike Johnson speak right here. Shout out to Mike Johnson.
Priority for us. This is America First legislation because it allows us to be set up to deliver for the American people. In January, we will make a sea change in Washington. President Trump will return to D.C. and to the White House, and we will have Republican control of the Senate and the House. Things are going to be very different around here. This was a necessary step to bridge the gap, to put us into that moment where we can put our fingerprints on the final decisions on spending for 2025. We also, in this bill, as you know, took care of Americans who desperately needed and deserved the assistance. We had a record hurricane season. Hurricanes Helene and Milton in particular did dramatic damage across at least 6 states, the Carolinas, Virginia, from Florida, Tennessee, all the way through. And they have been waiting for the federal government to assist. We did that tonight in this bill. We also took care of our farmers, many of whom were on the brink of collapse because of Bidenomics, frankly, because the inflationary cost of their inputs and the inability they have right now to get loans from the banks and the lenders to put their crops in the ground, to put the seeds in the ground in the spring. So we had to take care of that, and we did. We are excited about this outcome tonight. We're grateful that everyone stood together to do the right thing. And having gotten this done now as the last order of business for the year, we are set up for a big and important new start in January. We can't wait to get to that point. We encourage swift passage in the Senate now. They need to do their job as the House just did. We will all go home. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year, because I hope not to see you until we get back after that. I was in constant contact with President Trump throughout this process, spoke with him most recently about 45 minutes ago. He knew exactly what we were doing and why, and this is a good outcome for the country. I think he certainly is happy about this outcome as well. Elon Musk and I talked within about an hour ago. And we talked about the extraordinary challenges of this job. And I said, hey, you want to be Speaker of the House? I don't know. He said, this may be the hardest job in the world. I think it is. But we're going to get through this. We are going to unify this country, and we are going to bring the America First agenda to the people beginning in January. We cannot wait to get started. I hope you all have a great holiday.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
All right. Shout out to Mike Johnson. It looks like he's pretty happy right there. The bill has passed. Of course, it was going to pass. Because yesterday when they were going back and forth, I'm just looking like y'all are just capping. Because it will pass. It is definitely going to pass. Stop acting as if you think it won't pass. So it's like a bunch of BS going on. All right, more on Luigi case right here. And we're gonna go check out Liz Cheney, and we might end it right there with Liz Cheney. But this is Luigi. This boy just keeps getting famous every single time. Every time, Luigi keeps getting famous.
I don't know. I mean, the guy has already become kind of a folk hero, and I think New York just helped him out.
I don't know if he's become a folk hero, right? He's a violent criminal. What's interesting is that when it's a white guy, we always have to search for a reason. He might be a folk hero. It might have been about capitalism or healthcare or anything. Like literally this story, I can tell you this story. This story is the exact same thing that happened to a guy named Nipsey Hussle, who was a CEO who was stalked and killed in front of his business, and nobody cared about the reason for it, and everybody said it was gang related, and it turned out not to be gang related. But when it's a white guy, we search for a reason and valorize him and make him a hero. When he's just a violent criminal who did a violent thing, he's a thug.
We are not searching for a reason to make him a folk hero.
Thank you.
The left is searching for a reason to make him a folk hero.
Joe Rogan thinks he's a folk hero.
When I see Democratic politicians do the perfunctory, well, violence is never the answer, but you can see why people are mad. Yes, I believe people on the left, and you see it online, they are searching for a reason and want to turn this person in, and they want to into a folk hero, and they want to justify violence to change a system they don't like.
And your ability to shovel right-wing junk into a funnel and make it into something that is crazy.
I just want to show.
It's not right wing.
We are showing the signs. I mean, this was today, okay?
Maybe that's a MAGA person.
Does this look like a MAGA?
Could be.
Does this look like a MAGA rally?
I haven't seen a MAGA person wearing a mask in 3 years.
Oh, God.
I don't know that we can really say, actually, I mean, who knows what the politics of some of these people are. But there's no question that this guy, we know his name. People are calling him on a first name basis, which is crazy.
Luigi Mangione.
And New York decided to create a whole cinema scene around him, almost like he is a Batman villain. I don't get it.
Not enough parents.
The true story should be here. The absolute above and beyond Call of Duty of law enforcement to be able to track down a grainy or security video and a water bottle with a thumbprint on it and be able to track this guy down.
And why are they parading him around New York like it's some sort of trophy? Like, what is this? Man, these folks, right?
And in just a couple of weeks, he's being returned back to the city that he committed this murder in. And look, anything to justify this with healthcare and everything's healthcare is broken, but I guarantee you it had nothing to do with a 50-year-old CEO who worked his tail off to get to that spot. There should never be any justification in any party, in any state, in any demographic region, we should ever excuse murder, cold-blooded murder, shooting somebody in the back. I'm 49, my kid's out there, and Dad, he's your age. He shot right in the back, right down from where we're all staying. It's crazy.
On his way to a business meeting, gunned down in cold blood, shot in the back. I will say I've heard a lot of discussions about healthcare after this, have not heard a lot of calls for gun control, which typically happens when there's an incident. We haven't heard gun control calls here or after President Trump's assassination attempts, but it is abhorrent, and we shouldn't make him into a folk hero. I mean, listen, I've seen the memes, we've all seen the memes. Some of them can be amusing, but it's almost like this is made for TV. And kind of going back to our last segment, we have prosecutors who want to make a name for themselves. We have people who just want to jump on this very high-profile case. We have to be extremely cautious here.
The one thing I will say is we had a school shooting a few days ago, and you don't see the mayor of that town, you don't see the kind of attention that that's been getting because that's kind of become accepted, right? And so to me, a CEO gets shot and all of a sudden the world shuts down and school shootings have become so routine.
Also because in that scenario, they decided not to publicize the person's name, not to make this person someone who is valorized. I think that you're right, that there's a big difference between what happened. But New York City, I mean, I hear what the mayor is saying about leading from the front, but what he did was basically make this front page news. Put this guy's face on every single newspaper.
You know who's responsible?
Live television all day today.
But you know who's, I'm sorry, but you know who's responsible for this? You know who's responsible for catching this guy in New York City? Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner. You didn't see her doing this perp walk. You saw the mayor using this as a campaign event because he's got a primary. It's a very tough primary coming up next year. That's disgraceful. I don't know what Eric Adams was doing there, but this was not a time to be campaigning.
I think there is a connection to what she said about, like, this killer, the school shooter, valorized some violent killers in their manifesto. And so I think there's a connection to publicizing and valorizing these killers and violent people and perpetuating it.
Yeah, we gotta go. But everyone, thank you very much.
Eric Adams. Eric goddamn Adams. Showing Luigi to the world. I see. Bunch of BS. Bunch.
A lot of these companies are changing how
of
they talk
BS.
about it, but they're still engaging in the practices.
So, DEI, everybody in the chat. Diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. Do you think that's like a big deal in America now? Or it's dying? Or now with Trump, the 47th, coming back into the White House, do you think it's over? Let me know in the
And
chat.
the reason why is because there's a lot of research that says that it helps companies make more money. It helps them perform better than their competitors. They're just trying to stay away from the public blowback, it seems.
Well, I mean, let's not pretend that corporate America doesn't have a problem with race, doesn't have a problem with diversity. They do. But I think the color they care the most about is green. And so the first thing that happened with DEI was you had the George Floyd protests. You had a lot of pressure, both nationally and internationally, for companies to really commit to doing something about what was happening with race and racism in America. And now you have the blowback from that. That always happens. We see it historically, that whenever there are advances where race and other matters of diversity are concerned, there always blowback. And so they're looking at the money. That's all they care about. Now the pressure is coming from the right. Before, the pressure was coming from the left. If it comes from the left again, they'll move back to where they were.
I mean, some of the performative stuff in the post-George Floyd era, we could all live without, to be honest. I mean, I don't really need to see Coca-Cola's whatever, you know, just using that as a random example. But some of these corporations were just trying to virtue signal while doing nothing actually about what's going on within their companies.
Yeah, I think the question is, do you want diversity, equity, and inclusion? That's the first question. It's kind of like a chart. And then if it's no, then okay, then the conversation ends. And if it's yes, then it's like, how do you actually get there? From 2020, even in that year, many companies did, again, symbolic postings on their websites. But to do real DEI work takes, the intervention is not just one office with one person who does a webinar once a year during Black History Month or Women's History Month. You really have to evaluate your practices, your protocols, and really make a long-term commitment. It takes time.
What I don't get is, why would you have Black History Month, Women History Month, or whatever, and you don't have Men History Month? If you have Black History Month, I support that you should have White History Month. It is what it is. Black History Month, White History Month. You have Hispanic Month too. So everybody gets a month, then we would start this conversation rightly. Because it's like, you cannot pander to a group of people and not expect some sort of BS. Now, when you stop pandering to that group of people, it's going to be like, well, you don't care about us. Because you are trying to get spoon-fed in the first place. I get it, history. Okay, people are going to say, well, Genesis, what do you know about history? One thing I do know is, if something bad happened to you when you were younger, you don't want to even talk about it. You don't even want to remember it. Not to now want a month where you're talking about it, celebrating it. It's just like, if if somebody faced trauma as a child, do you want to grow older and then say, you know what, I want a month to celebrate my trauma? What? That's what I see Black History Month being. What are you celebrating actually? Yeah, what are you celebrating? So if these folks are just using these months to garner some sort of, I would say, liquidation. It's like money at the end of the day. It's like, oh, this is our month, so buy stuff. It's just like Black Friday. It is what it is. It's just like Black Friday. Black Friday. That's how I see Black History Month. Hispanics to have their month, so white should get their months too. Okay, women have their months. Men should have their months, same as kids. So everybody gets a month. Kids get 1 month. Women get 1 month. Men get 1 month. White get 1 month. Black gets 1 month. Hispanic gets 1 month. That's 6 months in a year. LGBTQ gets 1 month. Straights get 1 month. Married couple gets 1 month. Divorcees gets 1 month. That's 10. Then there's no months left. Okay? Because this is where y'all taking this whole thing to. This is where you're taking it to. Everybody's trying to get a month to celebrate what? Total BS.
Time to change some of the practices and you have to decide you want to do it. Now, I do think the analysis may say it's not going away, but we do know after the Supreme Court affirmative action decision, beyond just higher education institutions, many corporations, many other institutions started to look at that as a signal that they could start rolling their DEI practices. And to add the cultural component on top of it, it is not as if some people of a certain political party have not even used the word DEI as a trope, as a slang, as a term of slander. And so the question is, like, what is the real intention behind your work you do with DEI?
I think you raise an excellent point. Actually, I know something about this because my nonprofit, Lift Our Voices, focuses on this. And I can tell you, you're absolutely right. You have a tremendous number of companies that have these great ads where they're talking about their diversity, equity, inclusion.
You know what actually gets me all riled up? When I see someone who is not looking like me saying, yes, Black History Month. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. You're trying to get some support from the community. Sit down, bro. Look at her talking about, in my nonprofit, we talk about this. What do you talk about? Okay.
Work, but the work doesn't actually exist. And what they do is they silence their workers with forced arbitration and NDAs on the first day of work, which means that if you are racially discriminated against, the very same companies, and I know who they are, you're watching these commercials where they're constantly having, the African-American husband with the Asian wife, and they're talking about how, they're all about inclusion. And in reality, what they're doing is they're telling their African-American workers or their female workers or their gay or lesbian workers, keep your mouths shut because you have an arbitration clause or an NDA and you can't talk about what's going on at this company. And so, the hypocrisy I could do without. And actually, we're launching in January a corporate rating system that would be able to tell you which of these companies silence their workers. I think that is the key to making sure that you have a diverse workforce, because by doing these silencing mechanisms, they're driving out the very people they pretend to want to enfranchise, because it's people of color and women who are mostly affected by them, and they're being driven out of the workforce, out of their chosen careers, because of these silencing mechanisms. I think it is crucial to get rid of those.
Ashley also mentioned higher education. I mean, we did get some signals about what's been going
on. So shut down Coca-Cola, shut down all the companies really making everybody's life go on. Because if there's no Coca-Cola, like y'all pronounce, Coca-Cola, a lot of people would not have a good day without Coca-Cola.
Going on in higher education at Harvard, Harvard Law, they saw a huge decline in Black and Hispanic students. They enrolled 19 first-year Black students, 3% of the class, the lowest number since the 1960s. The school also saw a steep decline for Hispanic students, just 39 students, a fall from 63 back in 2023. So there's been a clear decline as a result of, this is the affirmative action ruling from the Supreme Court.
I mean, I think some universities were using these policies to discriminate against Asian students and other kinds of students. So, pick your discrimination. Who do you want to be discriminated against. Wouldn't the fair way to do it would be to say, we're going to look at everybody's test scores, we're going to look at everybody's applications, and we're going to do it agnostic of race, and we're going to let the most talented and the most accomplished students come to our universities. You mentioned the Supreme Court ruling, by the way, on affirmative action, which I do believe was a seminal moment because it reminded me when it happened that a vast majority of Americans do not want affirmative action. They do not believe in these forced racial preferences. And even a majority of African Americans agreed with the ruling at the time. And so when some people, often accuse Republicans are on the right, but I think a lot of Americans all across the spectrum look at this and say, I want to rise and fall based on my own talent and my own hard work. I don't want to rise and fall based on the pressures being put on me by people who don't know how much work I'm putting in.
Well, let's talk about fairness, because I think when you talk about fairness in education and bringing people in.
This is what I always say. I do not want to be seen as a victim ever, never in this world. If I die, I die. Okay. But I don't want to be seen as a victim, because victimization mindset it makes me angry, because you have an opportunity to make something of your life. You are here now. You can make something out of something, or something out of nothing, or you can work your butt off every day. You see people work 6 hours a day, and that's good. If you're trying to be a dream chaser, you would have to work more. Okay, Elon Musk, who happens to be the wealthiest human being financially ever to exist, this man said he was working 18 hours a day. There's 24 hours in a day, guys. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So that's 6 hours left in a day. He has to eat, he has to shower, he has to do other stuff, he has to relax, sleep. He works 18 hours a day. So if a man like that, who is known to the world as one of the greatest innovator of our time, is working 18 hours a day, who the fuck am I? Who am I that would complain about opportunity when I'm actually not working 18 hours a day? Before you start complaining, you have to put in the work for years. Apply yourself, stop complaining, do your due diligence, improve on your craft every day. Just every day. All right, don't do 18 hours a day, do 10 hours a day. You would be so surprised how hard 10 hours a day of pure work is. Like I'm saying, work. This ain't we're chilling. I'm saying work for 10 hours straight. You would be surprised how hard it is. So when people say diversity, equity, inclusion, or whatever it is, you want to be judged by, oh, I come from this race, I'm part of this ethnicity. No, what about your talent? What about your work ethic? What about your energy? What about I'm going to get it regardless of where I came from, my circumstances, because I believe in myself and I'm going to keep going. I would never quit. This is why I voted for Trump, because this man always says, never, ever, ever quit. That's just something I love to hear. When people say never quit, it makes me happy, because it's like, you know what it takes to be successful. And most people wouldn't like that kind of conversation. Like, never quit, keep going, apply yourself, work as hard as you can, and work for a long amount of time. Long work sessions. That's what makes success. Long work sections. You don't work for 2 hours and you're Gucci. No. This is Elon Musk, guys. Sending a rocket to space, creating Tesla, saving the climate, working 18 hours a day. So I don't want to hear nobody who working 6, 8 hours a day talking about, I'm not getting my fair shot. You better be working 10 to 15 hours a day at least.
According to their grades and according to their test scores. First, you have to fairly fund the schools that they come from. In Pennsylvania, we just had a ruling that said that our schools are unfairly funded according to poverty, right? And so it's not just race, it's poverty as well. And so there are some white school districts that aren't getting the money that they're supposed to get. There are some black school districts that aren't getting the money that they're supposed to get. And I'm defining them that way because our schools are still segregated. Even after Brown versus the Board of Education.
I was also
separate is not equal.
I was
It's
just reading
not.
a headline from the New York Times today about a lawsuit against a bunch of elite schools.
Also, wait, are the schools still separated or segregated? Isn't it by the zip code that you live? If you live in a zip code, you could go to any school you want in that zip code. Isn't that what it is? Are schools still actually segregated? I don't believe
Georgetown,
that.
Penn, and MIT.
I gotta look that up.
And guess what the preferences are? For people whose mommies and daddies have a lot of money
Of
and they just
course.
got a ticket into the school. I just don't get, where's the outrage about that? That's been going on in this country for hundreds of years.
Oh, I don't agree with that either.
That has been going on in the world forever. Joe Biden just pardoned Hunter Biden. Joe Biden just pardoned Hunter Biden. What do you think it is?
Where's the outrage? Why are we only focused on race when this is affirmative action?
But I do have something to say about what you just said.
No, I just wanted to say that I think that the whole issue of DEI became much more prevalent when there were issues in the military. I think a lot of people were very put off by some of the contradictions, concerned that our soldiers weren't really ready for their missions and were more concerned about DEI or more concerned about their pronouns that they used. And this was, I think, part of what really set off a lot of Republicans and conservatives that, you know, they started to look into DEI initiatives and are they working and what do they really mean?
I think one of the things about the affirmative action decision that is a misconception is that there is this belief of what is the merit-based system if you're just looking at grades, but what actually adds to the quality of the discussion in a classroom at a higher education institution. Diversity of lifestyle also is something that you don't want everyone to come from the same walk of life. You don't want everyone to have the same ideology. That is not the rigor of, but I also
And you may
will
also
say,
not want them to have the same test scores.
that's right.
too.
Well, I also will say, I understand when the decision, I don't know the source that you quoted, but we do know in affirmative action that white women have actually been the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action. And even though the lawsuit was brought and it was brought with Asian American plaintiffs, their numbers have also decreased. So they are also seeing backlash from that ruling.
Oh man. These folks, guys. These folks. Shout out to Liz Cheney. What's going on right here?
Donald Trump, just weeks away from being invested with the immense powers of the presidency, calling for a criminal investigation into Liz Cheney over witness tampering after a report from House Republicans singled her out, accusing her of colluding with a witness on the January 6th committee and recommending she be investigated for possible criminal prosecution. The president-elect weighing in on Tuesday's report just 3 hours ago, saying this on his Truth Social platform, quote, Liz Cheney could be in a lot of trouble based on the evidence obtained by the subcommittee, which states that numerous federal laws were likely broken by Liz Cheney, and these violations should be investigated by the FBI, end quote, 3:11 a.m. this morning. The president-elect there, referring to the report released yesterday by a Republican-controlled House subcommittee, alleging what it called, quote, the failures and politicization of the January 6th Select Committee, end quote. The report calls the committee, quote, a political weapon with a singular focus to deceive the public into blaming President Trump for the violence on January 6th and tarnish the legacy of his first presidency. Among the report's allegations against Cheney that she colluded with one of the committee's witnesses, Cassidy Hutchinson, who served as an assistant to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Hutchinson provided testimony about Trump's actions on January 6th, including recounting a story she was told about an interaction the president had with his Secret Service driver.
The president said something to the effect of, I'm the effing president take me up to the Capitol now. To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel.
In a lengthy statement, Cheney.
Oh man. So Trump at the time was about what? 60 in his late no. In his early no. Like towards his mid 70s. This guy was in his mid 70s launching his arm towards his Secret Service. According to that lady. You can never make this up, people.
He refuted the report's findings. She says that it, quote, intentionally disregards the truth and the Select Committee's tremendous weight of evidence and instead fabricates lies and defamatory allegations in an attempt to cover up what Donald Trump did, end quote. What did Donald Trump do? On January 6th, after spending months promoting false claims of election fraud, he stood on the ellipse and he said this.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify. And we become president, and you are the happiest people. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
In the hours after those remarks, this violent mob stormed the Capitol in an attempt to prevent the certification of Trump's defeat. Some rioters chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," Trump's own vice president at the time, because Pence refused to violate his oath of office. That deadly day's events were enough at the time for Republicans to condemn Trump.
There's no question, none, that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. No question about it.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters.
Oh, forgot this
He
time.
should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding.
All I can say is count me out. Enough is enough.
But now, of course, 4 years later, the Republican Party once again united behind Trump, and in little over a month, he will once again control the federal government, have the authority to order the investigations, or at least have the people that he installs in Department of Justice positions undertake investigations that he has openly called for months.
I think those people committed a major crime,
Sir?
and Cheney was behind it. For what they did,
Yeah.
honestly, they should go to jail.
All right, our panel is here to discuss. Jeff Zeleny, CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent. Michael Warren, Senior Editor of The Dispatch. Karen Finney, CNN Political Commentator, former Senior Spokesperson for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. And Kristen Soltis Anderson. She is a CNN Political Commentator and a Republican pollster. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Mike Warren, I want to start with you in terms of the singling out of Liz Cheney in this report and the way that it sets up what Donald Trump is now. I mean, it's almost as though this House subcommittee has pitched the ball. Donald Trump is hitting it in the direction of his incoming Department of Justice. It's not as though he hasn't said this was what he was going to do, but we are now seeing it play out.
That's right, retribution. That's what he promised on the campaign trail. He was elected. He was elected overwhelmingly. If you look at the Electoral College, he's going to get his retribution, I believe. And, you know, should we be surprised that the House Republican Conference is sort of is working, you know, hand in glove with the incoming president on this? This is what the party has been saying they want to do. It's what Trump has been saying he wants to do. So now we're going to see it. And I think that that is what makes, I mean, we all know how, you know, the expected nomination of Kash Patel, I guess it's maybe now official, to run the FBI, how this was going to be, really a sort of a culmination of that promise of retribution. That's the thing that a lot of, even I've talked to people who are Republicans who are concerned about Kash Patel and the amount of power he would have been trying to convey to Republican senators. Hey, listen, this guy is different. This guy really will do what Donald Trump says he wants to do at the FBI. And that message has been sort of falling on deaf ears. You've seen Kash Patel get a good reception on Capitol Hill from Republican senators. This is a concern that a lot of people have, and I think it's just going to happen.
Let's take a look at some of the things Kash Patel has said about Liz Cheney. This was back in March of this year, March 11th. Let's watch.
I think they not only knew, but the political monsters like Pelosi, Cheney, Kinzinger, Schiff et al. Wanted that political narrative, which was insurrection. It failed in court, and now it is failing in the court of public opinion because the truth has finally come out that the January 6th committee buried evidence that corroborates what we've been saying for 3 years.
Jeff Zeleny, what are you hearing from sources when you talk to them about? I mean, this Liz Cheney used to be one of their own. She was in the leadership of the House Republican conference. Is this something where, are any House Republicans or Senate or other Republicans you talk to expressing concern about what might happen here?
Look, I mean, it's been a while since she's been one of their own. You're right. I mean, but time moves quickly here, and now she certainly is not. I mean, what this sort of is another reminder is that there is a sense of litigation in the air. We're seeing it with the president-elect. That is one of his big focuses. We saw it yesterday with his suit against the Des Moines Register and their pollster. 311 this morning, as you pointed out, talking about Liz Cheney. So that is the mindset of the president-elect. But I think overall, a lot of Senate Republicans, House Republicans are really wondering what the balance of forward-looking policy from this White House is going to be versus backward-looking retribution. And we don't know. I mean, but there is a sense that the president-elect has a great opportunity here to do things on immigration and the economy and other matters, but he is not as focused on that. So that's the worry I pick up from some Senate Republicans in particular. But I mean, to Mike's point, they are making it pretty easy for him by confirming or likely confirming, if they confirm these nominees, including Kash Patel.
Yeah. Kristen, is this where you think Trump, not necessarily Trump's core supporters, and we know his MAGA base often believes a lot of this and would support it, but the reason he won the election is because a lot of people that had voted for Democrats in the past or had, were on the fence or kind of in the middle, who are unhappy about the economy, decided they didn't want to vote for Democrats. They wanted change. Are those people going to see this and support it? I mean, or is he risking some of that? I mean, he clearly feels he has a political mandate. Is he risking that strength by going down this road?
Yeah, it was very clear that Donald Trump ran saying, I'm going to get retribution. I don't think you can say that this is a switcheroo in any way.
I can't watch this anymore. These people are just liars. Yeah. All right. With that being said, you guys are the best. Liz Cheney, face the music if it happens. And if you're free, if you're innocent, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Just like the OG, the 47th president-elect, had to go through it, had to pay lawyers, had to go to court, had to face all that humiliation. So if you're not guilty, then you shouldn't be afraid of anything. So just relax, calm down. It's just your turn. Face the music, and it is what it is. Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and believe in God. Yes, y'all. We have come to the end of the live show. Yes, I told you I was going to come here. We've been streaming for 3 hours, 49 minutes. It is currently 1:53 a.m. and today's date is the 21st of December, 2024. 4 days to Christmas. The year's coming to an end, everybody. I hope you have your 2025 planned out. And if you haven't, it's okay. Okay, it's okay. Relax. It ain't all that. Don't be trying to kill yourself. Okay, just relax. Breathe. Everything is going to be okay. All right. But thank you for watching the live show. God bless you guys. If you didn't like the live stream, double tap your screen right now to give this video a like. All you have to do is double tap your screen And thank you guys for being a part of the show. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you. Your boy, Genesis, is signing out. Hopefully, I come here earlier tomorrow. I really want us to be streaming like really 10 hours a day, like minimum. But because I really want to make this like a full-time thing, but I have a lot going on. Okay. I have a lot going on the side. So hopefully that's my goal for 2025. And yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful day. God bless you. Mr. Booski, God bless you. K Gamer, God bless you. Zimmer, Prince of Amsterdam, God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Everybody, Cliff C, Debbie, God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. And Merry Christmas to you guys. Well, it's not Christmas yet, but Merry Christmas. Santa Claus may be coming to your home to leave a little some, from the chimney. And yeah, God bless you guys. God bless you.